This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome everybody to Wednesday, November 10th meeting of the Monterey Select Board. I'm Stephen Weiss, the chair here at Town Hall.
Justin Mako, present.
John Weingold, president.
With Tom, Justin, and myself.
Oh, that's true.
Hold on. Everybody mute your screens there. Okay, let's just jump in and see how far we get, shall we?
Point of order.
Yes.
The posting for this meeting is only posted as a remote meeting. You've got two quorum of the full location on the notice, violation of the open meeting law.
I can go to a different room and zoom in if that meets
It's
requirements.
not posted as only a remote meeting.
Well, it doesn't say town hall meeting room.
So,
Correct. It says meeting 6 p.m. Evening access for the public is at via Zoom or GoToMeeting. So it's a legally posted meeting pursuant to the open meeting law. There's no local law.
okay, so I certainly did not anticipate this, riveting piece of information to come across my desk here. So therefore, as the chair, can I make a motion to amend the minute, the posting of the meeting? Can you amend it?
I don't think you should amend the meeting place at the meeting. It's supposed to be posted in advance. It sounds like, or when I took a look, it's for a while, it has not listed town hall meeting room.
So you mean the
Now-
last time that we met also?
Oh, I'm not going back a little while, I didn't check each individual one. I just learned of this, the same time that you and John learned about it. So if I'm remote on the link, that would satisfy the requirements?
Well, no, because technically, everybody would have to be remote.
One of the reasons, excuse me, Debbie Slater, one of the reasons we actually show up is because it's very difficult sometimes to actually listen clearly on the Zoom. So I know that we're here so that we can be able to see and hear better.
So, listen, you know what?
Well,
I mean,
the law is the law. You guys have been doing this for years. So if you don't follow the law, what's the point of having any rules and regulations?
If he knew about it, why doesn't he make it 48 hours in advance?
yeah, actually, that's a
Well,
very.
we just got an email.
Right.
I'm sure he knew about it.
Excuse me. Does that mean that we have to leave?
No.
That means that I'm gonna have a motion.
Doesn't mean I have to participate in an illegally posted, improperly posted meeting pursuant to the open meeting law.
Could you clarify something for me? What is this thing you just found out about? Because I just looked at the ones that are posted on the website. There isn't a venue listed. But it seems to me, as someone who's been attending these for some time and watching town business, they are typically held in that room with Zoom access. And that seems implied by what's posted currently under the select board on the Monterey Mass Gov website, and this is how you've been handling it for months. Why should this meeting be different than all those other meetings? Are you saying every meeting held for months has been illegal, John?
I'm saying every meeting that doesn't have a location listed at the meeting has to be done remote.
So with the exception of, I would say about 6 meetings, in the entire 5.5 years that I've been on the board, we've always had the select board meetings in town hall. And the only 6 meetings that I'm speaking of is when town hall was closed because of COVID restrictions. So other than that, every single meeting going back to the beginning of Monterey has taken place in town hall. It, and so,
All this points to is the incompetence of the person that's hosting these meetings. I'm not going to attend a legally posted meeting.
I think I would say that everybody here is online remotely, so whether they're at their house or at the town hall, they're all attending the meeting that was posted.
yeah, I mean, I myself, believe me, I'm not 100% here.
And Justin has now left and is on remotely.
So, but I understand, if you're attending an illegal meeting, aren't you yourself participating in a legal meeting? I mean, not to get too philosophical, but
He just left.
what?
He left.
Oh, God, what a child.
Okay, so this is really interesting. It's the beginning, since Monterey was formed, although I'm sure there's probably a few at the beginning that they weren't, has been held in town hall. It would be, and the fact that we do seems to belie the fact that they have an understanding that the meetings take place in town hall as well. If that is what we want to spend our time and efforts to do, is just the technicality of something that may or may not exist, I think that's a shame, because we really have things to do over here.
John
Steve,
Weingold has returned, just so you know.
Steve,
What?
the meeting is remote and online. There's nothing that says where you have to be seated when you're participating in a meeting online. There was notice of this meeting that, let's assume it's a notice that it'll be an online meeting. All that means is that the meeting has to be going on the computer and going out. It is going on the computer and going out. John, as usual, has absolutely no idea what he's talking about.
So I guess, yeah, theoretically, I could have everybody over at my house and have them, that's perfectly acceptable. And so I'm actually just happen to be here right now, and everybody just happens to be here right now, and we're all remote. Anyway, looking forward to the, to the reams of complaints. Let's do a little town business, shall we?
And by the way, that means that Justin, if you wanted to, could also be here.
Of course.
I'm happy to meet, I'm happy to participate remotely, and going forward, let's just make sure to put town hall meeting room as a posted location for the meeting. Follow the law.
Adding it to the agenda as we speak.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we're going to amend that first paragraph, the first sentence of all agendas from now on, to Monterey Board meeting agenda sponsored by Town Hall. All right, so again, if anybody out there is calling this an illegal meeting, any select board members calling this an illegal meeting, and you're participating in this meeting, then you are as culpable as the people that you are.
No, Steve, because you won't do the right thing and remove the people. If you remove people from town hall and you're there by yourself, I don't think you're a violation of the OML. You like to break laws.
Who's talking?
That's
That's
Nancy
Nancy
Tomas.
Tomasovich.
That's what I thought.
Bitch.
Okay, so let's continue, shall we?
Well, then, no.
What?
Then I make a motion that we remove Steve Weiss as the chairman of the select board, since he wants to violate the open meeting law.
I don't think it's a violation of open meeting law, because now all members are participating remotely, right?
No, Steve's breaking the law. There's people in there.
Nancy.
Come on.
Okay, so
Stop.
listen, so first of all, I'm not breaking the law. Second of all, I do not want to violate the open meeting law, and saying that is not very nice. No one wants to violate the open meeting law. I'm trying
But you
to
do.
have
But you did.
a meeting. What? When?
You didn't. The person that posted the meeting did. Because she's incompetent. Because she can't proper post. It says right on the bottom of the thing, everything will be done pursuant to the open meeting law. It's not.
It is being done according to the
No.
open meeting law. John, you don't know what you're talking about.
Just let him keep going, because he's just making my case for me. Keep calling me
No.
names and harassing me in
Yeah.
meetings. It's
No.
awesome.
I'm saying you're incompetent. That's not a name.
Exactly. It is. You're challenging my character in an open meeting.
Well, I certainly.
I'm challenging your competency to post
All right.
proper meeting.
Oh, there's another one. Thank you,
Mr.
John.
Weingold, if you're not going to use nice language, we're going to mute you. And you've got another reason to file a complaint. Let's continue with the business.
And I make another motion to remove Steve Weiss as chairman of the select.
I didn't hear a second.
All right, hearing no second, your motion fails, John. Feel free to bring that back up at the next meeting and the following meeting and the meeting after that. Can we talk about town business now, or somebody wants to have a little tantrum?
No, please.
Okay. The minutes, well, it's too bad. Justin, do you think you get in your car and come over here and show me what you changed on the minutes?
So the August 14 minutes, I have no edits to. I did make edits to October 27th and November 3rd.
So you were saying that the August 14th minutes of, you don't have any edits to, is that correct?
Yes. So I'd make a motion to approve the August 14th minutes.
Okay, I second that motion. And, this was the second homeowners meeting, and John Weingold was absent for that, so only Justin and I are going to vote. So I vote yes?
Justin may cook yes.
Okay. The other one, let's see.
I don't have his changes.
Okay, we don't have your changes. I have an old draft copy.
I sent them this evening, right before the meeting. We can't share edits to minutes, in advance, too far in advance of meeting. So I just sent them this evening.
Okay, so then why don't we table them and, so we can actually print them up and discuss them at the next legal or illegal meeting. So, 1B, public records on website. I understand not everybody has
Correct.
responded,
So I would suggest tabling that until everybody has.
so I make a motion to table that into the next meeting.
So just to clarify, the select board is now including documents in our minutes that we post, but we're talking about creating a policy for all boards and committees. Is that what we're tabling?
Yeah, we're waiting for, we had a discussion where the board felt that, that they didn't want to get feedback from all the boards and committees, or all the boards and committees, as to the policy. And, we asked Melissa to reach out to them. She did. Some of them have responded, some of them have not.
Yeah, I'll second the table.
So I vote yes.
Justin Maycock, yes.
The next one is something that I'm really keenly interested in. This is a draft survey, trying to get the public input on what we're gonna do with the ARPA funding. ARPA stands for what, American
Rescue Plan Act.
Rescue Plan Act. Okay, and that's the money that has trickled down to the federal government to try to compensate towns and cities for the disruption that they had during the when COVID was really bad. And so these monies, which is that correct?
Yes.
$138,000. So the Monterey is gonna have $138,000. And what most towns, most local towns are doing, I think is a great idea, and that's basically getting the public input. Because it's not just the select board that was impacted, the general public was impacted. So, so this survey, we got to another town?
That's the one I put together based on questions that other towns asked, and
So I have some comments on the draft survey. I didn't make edits in the document because they're kind of larger suggestions for how I think the survey could maybe elicit more responses. It lays out the different ways that the money could be spent, and then it, asks people to select 5 or select 3 for the different categories. But one problem that I was having with it was that the wording is different between the categories when they're listed out, explained, and examples are provided. And so I was thinking to streamline it, maybe it could just be the 10, I think it's 10 items, and then have the same wording for when, with their explanations and their examples, and then have the same wording as the choices when it gets to that point of the survey. I also, it said select 5 choices out of 10, and I think maybe having a more limited selection, like 3 or 4, might give a better response if everyone's choosing 5 categories. That might, I don't know what kind of data that will yield, but my general comment on it is maybe to streamline it so that, it lists broadband access, assistance to unemployed workers, rent, and then it just lists those with a limited explanation, because I think a lot of them, it's pretty obvious what, affordable housing or rent assistance is, but maybe a brief explanation with some examples, and then just to use the same wording for when they're ultimately selecting on the survey where they think it should be allocated, because it was a little bit confusing to me just reading through it and having the different wording there. And then also I would just say fewer choices. The other comment I had was that it's very personal when it says something like, what does your household want, or what does your household need, like mental health services or counseling services or substance use. And maybe if it was less personal, it said, where do you think in general these funds could be spent, then it wouldn't, maybe it would elicit more responses, because some people may be uncomfortable saying, their family wants substance use treatment, but it could be a very good way to spend the money. But people might be uncomfortable. I know it's an anonymous survey, but maybe it could just, you could take the orient it less towards the person. It may make people feel more comfortable to answer those kinds of questions.
Good point.
I think those are very good points as well. I think that the categories should be like the categories should be a little bit more simplistic. As Justin said, I agree with that. So that, instead of that, the full sentence of it, just kind of like, yes, activity, internet, housing aid, this and that. I would also the text of what the funds cannot be used for should probably also go in the front, and it should be also go in the front paragraph as well, so that people already have an idea of what they cannot use it for. I know people have been asking me about some of these, and so I think it should be front loaded. Yeah, as far as the survey at the end, I'm assuming that we took that from an existing survey.
I compiled questions from a bunch of existing surveys and took these questions.
Okay.
I
Well,
would
yeah,
also, can I make a point of order?
sure.
I'd just like to point out that we use acronyms in public.
I hear what he said.
No one heard that.
What's that?
Nobody heard.
We couldn't hear what you said.
Kind of got garbled at the end there.
It's not recommended to use acronyms in public postings because acronyms, you don't know what's being discussed. So just a point.
What's the acronym that ARPA? Is it ARPA?
Right. No one knows. The public doesn't know what that is. I didn't know what it was until you mentioned it.
It's explained in the first paragraph.
So yeah, the first line actually says, it says Monterey has been afforded funding, $138,000 through the American Rescue Plan Act, and then in parentheses, ARPA. We should make that bold, maybe.
Maybe.
No, I think John's point is not. I think John's point is not about on the document, because it's clear on the document, but on the agenda. Like, for example, we have Lake Garfield Working Group appointment instead of LGWG. So, this agenda is really pretty good. That's the only acronym on it, but it is advised to not use acronyms so people can know in advance what we're speaking about.
Correct.
So in the future, it'll be on the new format of the agenda as with the American Rescue Plan Act. All right, so you want to?
I'll work on the changes and have it for next week.
Okay, so Melissa's gonna work on the changes, and if anybody has any specific, if people want to write it, you can send that to Melissa as well. But I think you sort of got the gist of what we're trying to accomplish. Okay. Agenda posting survey results.
Oh, that's not attached. Can you table that one as well? Because I'm still waiting for half of the people to.
Okay, so I make a motion to table that to the next meeting.
I want to make one comment before we move on from this. Even if the chairs of committees don't want to post their own meetings to the website, which is a possibility, maybe we should look into having, it doesn't necessarily need to be that. I know that's one of the ways forward to allow meetings to be posted when the town administrator is not available, but maybe it could be a second person with access or some other solution. And if we hear back from all the chairs and they would like to post their own meetings and go right up, and that's the solution forward, then that works. But if it's another solution, like having a second person being able to do it, if the chairs don't want to, that we should also consider that too going forward. I just want to add that.
Do you second my motion to table this agenda item to the next meeting?
Yeah, I'll second.
I vote yes.
Yes.
John?
He's muted and.
Okay, so we're gonna list that as no vote for Mr. Weingold. So let's go on. Grant administration draft policy attached.
I read it and it in general seemed,
Sorry, break.
I read it and in general it seemed to be a good policy to make sure that we can apply for grants and that they can be administered after we receive them. I would like to table it, however, because I'm meeting with one of the grant writers in a couple days, and I like to get some input on the matter before I, agree to it.
Are you only meeting with one of the grant writers, or both of them?
Well, I will, I'm going to meet with grant writers to get input. I had a meeting with one of the grant writers, and I'll meet with both of the grant writers and see what they think. I just wanted to get their input. I didn't see any problems with it, but I'm not a grant writer, so I just wanted to get more input before I agree to that policy.
That's fine. I'm just suggesting that you speak to, we only have two grant writers that are not the town administrator or the chief. So I would suggest that you meet with both of them, and to formulate. All right, so yeah, so I've got no problem tabling it to the next. So I second, is that a motion? You made a motion?
Yeah.
Well, hold on one second. Terry Walker, who was one of the two of the grant writers, resigned. Who's the other person that's a grant writer? There, you said there's two. Who's the other one? Dennis Lynch and who else? Terry's resigned. Didn't she? No, she withdrew her resignation. Right. Okay.
So, okay. You answered your question, right? So when I'm referring to, I'm referring to Ms. Walker and Mr. Lynch. Okay? Okay. Does everybody here at our remote meeting hear me? Okay, so, yes, so Justin, if you could meet with those two individuals, that'd be great. So I second your motion to table it. Did you make a motion, Justin?
Motion to table grant administration draft policy to next week.
Okay, I second that. I vote yes.
Justin Maycook, yes.
John's like,
Okay, so John is not voting. So we're just gonna put down two votes. Okay. Okay. Change of office hours. There's been this the board has received previously. There's been a request to modify hours by the town administrator.
So my thoughts on it, after receiving the report that Melissa gave us about people coming in the office or calling and emailing, I think there's a lot of value to having the town administrator in 5 days a week during business hours. But I do understand that Wednesday nights have been later, and so maybe a compromise would be to come in late one day, like maybe Thursday after a late Wednesday night, or leave early one day, but it would still allow that 5-day presence. Sometimes things need to be moved through, or agendas, just for an example, but posting an agenda. So I think the 5-day presence is important to the position. And part of the whole part of what makes the town administrator position the town administrator position. But I do understand Wednesday nights are sometimes late, so maybe coming in late one day or leaving early by a couple hours would make up for late Wednesday evenings while still allowing for the 5-day presence.
So at least during the during the winter months, I personally have no problem if the town administrator is not in the office on one day, as long as the public has advance notice of that day. I think that, there's certainly less, public visits. And, I mean, I for one would have no objection to trying it out and seeing if it works. I know that we did that for the clerk, and I was the first person to, to understand that, to not get any, I was expecting to get some calls from the public that they couldn't access the clerk, and I didn't. So therefore, I had no problem moving the clerk's office, moving the clerk's hours. So I would suggest that we do the same thing for the town administrator, that we allow her to adjust her schedule here, and we look for feedback from the public. If people are, people are coming in on Friday and saying, well, I must have her here on Friday, then I would call to reverse that. So I move a test period where we actually, allow it and see how the public reacts.
I think, Steve, where I differ is that as opposed to many of the part-time employees of the town that work in town hall, the town administrator is a position that coordinates between people and is kind of a central point where a lot of business goes through. And even a presence for a couple hours on a day could, move information along from point to point. And it's not so much about people coming in the office as much as town business being done, 5 days a week. And, even if it's a 6-hour day instead of an 8-hour day, or even a 5-hour day, one of the days, I think that 5-day presence is really important to keep things moving along. But like I said, I do understand late Wednesday nights. And I think to make up for that, coming in late one day or leaving early would get the town the services from the town administrator and keep things moving along for the town while taking into account the needs of the employee of having a long Wednesday. That would be my suggestion on this issue.
So Melissa, would you be amenable to coming up with an alternative strategy in which you would be here?
Sure, I'll leave a half a day on Friday early.
Okay. Does that sound reasonable, Justin? To should be here on Friday?
Yeah, I think so. So like, if you stay 3 hours or 4 hours late on Wednesday, or on average, it doesn't have to be like exact every week, but if you on average stay 3 hours late on Wednesday, then leave 3 hours early on Friday. But, as long as you can get to the business, I just think that presence, even if it's not a full day, is important to keep things moving along for the town. So if that works for you, I feel like that's a fair solution for the town and the employee.
I wasn't aware that this was an hourly position. I thought it was a salaried position according to the job contract, it's 35-hour minimum. So, I mean, this isn't an hourly position where you can, take a half a day, and it may require 45 hours. I mean, it's a salaried position. So, I don't know.
So the town administrator does actually, work beyond the scope of what's considered to be the minimum for this job. I think really the bulk of this discussion is about presence during certain days, and she was looking to not be present during a day. Justin came up with a compromise. She seems to be amenable to it. But anyway, Mickey had her hand up, so I just wanted to recognize she's.
Yeah, I think you solved it. I was just concerned that it should be a set date, not moving around to different times, because that confuses people.
Right.
If we know that you're not gonna be here such and such a, day, then it's.
No,
It
we'll,
would be
Makes more
Fridays at
sense.
noon I would leave, because I put in well more than the 3 hours that this meeting goes.
we'll, we'll
Yeah,
post
so
per
it's
hours.
like, the office will be closed Friday afternoons or something.
Right.
And I don't, I know Friday afternoons is nice, but, I don't know if that's a busy time for the office. Because that's what I always had, was people coming in a lot that were coming up from New York.
Right.
And stopping by to pick up.
So this is a good time to test this, because there are fewer people, I mean, we still have a lot of second homeowners coming up on Fridays, but far less in the non-summer months than we do
Yeah. Oh,
during
absolutely.
during the summer months. So it'd be a good time to test it, and if it's, believe me, if one of us here that the public is not happy, or, that it's a problem.
Yeah, you'll get the feedback.
We'll get the feedback, people are not shy with feedback.
Steve Moore had his hand up first.
Yes, Steve. Steve Moore.
So there was discussion a couple of weeks ago, and then last week, about getting documents in ahead of time for the to be attached to the agendas, and the whole timeliness of the agenda postings. And so I'm wondering if maybe Thursday afternoon would be a better day for her to leave early, so that that window for posting documents and so on isn't lost on Friday afternoon.
Good point, Steve. It's actually Mondays, Mondays that we deal with our agendas. So they need to be posted by Monday evening, not Friday, unless there's a Monday holiday.
But you were talking about, I know that you said like documents in by Monday morning, but people might have questions. They might need to be transmitting those documents at, sometime Friday. That's all. Just a thought.
According to the request for schedule, the town administrator would begin Monday at 7:30 a.m. as opposed to 8:30 a.m. Really, you want to do that? Okay. So there would be an additional time for her to process any of these agenda items that might come in between afternoon on Friday and before the normal close of business on Friday, which was 4. So I'm personally comfortable with that. But again, if we're getting a backlog, or there's a dispute on the board, somebody tried to post something, or there are other people trying to post something and it's not working out, we have the ability to actually to regulate this, to move it.
Right, Janet had her hand up next.
Janet?
Yeah, I just want to point out that we're just getting off of a pandemic when we've experimented with a lot of different ways of doing things. The town hall was closed for I don't know how long, but I don't know how far Melissa has to come to work, but there's travel time, there's gas time, there's, icy roads. And I think we can work around a day with the town hall closed. And I think we have to start thinking about new ways of conducting business. And I think it's proven that we can. Anyway, that's my say.
Nancy Tomasovich has her hand up.
Okay, Nancy?
With all the second homeowners that Monterey has, and they usually come up on Fridays, it may better serve all the second homeowners to have the town hall open and move the shortened hours to Thursday. However, with the pandemic and in a professional organized government as well as a corporation, they're not concerned how you get to work, the roads. It's your responsibility. It's part of your job to get back and forth to where you work. That's how it rolls. So, and the cost of gas should be included in your salary that you have been paid according to your contract. So I don't agree with that, but I think to serve the second homeowners on a Friday would be well served.
Okay. All right, so, I would make a motion that we adjust the town administrator's hours Monday and Tuesday from 7:30 AM to 4:30 PM, Wednesday from 8:30 AM to 5:30 PM, Thursday from 8 AM to 4 PM,
Was it 12 and
Friday from 8:30 to 12.
4?
What?
8:30 to 12, yeah.
So wait, so is
8:30 to 12.
8:30 to 12. Do I have a second on that? Even though Justin should have made the motion because he asked.
Second.
All in favor, I say aye.
Yes.
I'm abstaining from all votes during this meeting based on my earlier comment about the improper posting of this meeting.
Susan Cooper has her hand up.
Okay, but you understand that your decision is made within the illegal meeting. It's quote unquote illegal meeting. So
I find it rather interesting that you're willing, Mr. Weingold, to sit there and interject when it suits you, but not to vote. It's either illegal and you shouldn't participate, or you should participate. We elected you. We'd like to hear your vote, or at least your comment, and not just comments that try to derail any business from being done, which seems to be your modus operandi, including trying to prevent this meeting from occurring.
So,
Right, keep going.
okay, I think it's a very good, Susan, I agree with you 100%. So, get ready, you're gonna also be included on the filing. Let's continue, shall we?
Oh, he just signed off.
Yep, you did.
That's it. Nothing will get done tonight. Trust me. He just signed off.
Okay, but you understand that in order to sign off from something, you have to be on it. So technically, he was here. And I have witnesses, including retired judge. Okay, so let's continue. Continue the select board rules, policies, and procedures.
So I had a thought, and I know we spent a lot of hours reviewing this document earlier in the summer, and I made some final edits to it a couple weeks ago, which I would be happy to approve it with those edits. But I was looking at the handbook for Massachusetts selectmen recently, and then I was thinking, what are the advantages of having our own select board's rules, policies, and procedures draft as opposed to, relying on the handbook? Well, our document was shorter and more succinct, and it had a couple things that are particular to Monterey that aren't laid out that way in the handbook for the state as a whole. But on the other hand, the handbook for the state as a whole goes into more detail on each issue. And I think it's a little bit, I think it is a bit smoother and well polished of a document. Just from my reading of it, it's a much longer document. I forget, I think it's about 100 pages or maybe more. But there's a clear index of roles and responsibilities that you can look at, and it will direct you to where you need to go. It is not tailored to our town, but it in many ways is more informative. And so I thought maybe instead of continuing to spend time and energy reviewing our own document like this, maybe we should just rely on that handbook, which we're already doing. But if we want to, we could post that to our webpage as the select board webpage so that people could know what to expect from us. We could know what to do. New members could read through. I just don't know how much of an advantage there is to having our own document that doesn't add too much beyond what the handbook, the longer handbook that the Mass Municipal Association has produced. And so I thought, my suggestion would be to actually not approve our own roles, policies, and procedures, although I have made edits on it. And so I'd be happy, I don't know. That's just my thought on the issue.
So Justin, I'm heartened that you came to this conclusion. We've discussed this many times over many years at the board here about the current policies and procedures as they exist. Every once in a while, there seems to be a push to add things to it or take things away from the existing handbook. I do remember, at least on 2 occasions, discussions with previous council where previous council actually said, you're covered, this is adequate, this is what all towns, most towns actually do. I agree, we're trying to reinvent the wheel, and that's, if you ever see maybe behind masks you don't see it, my frustrated look of whenever we had this discussion, I think we were just spending a little too much time on something that I think a good, something, a good example already exists. And I think it should be available on our site for people to take a look at as well, so they can have an understanding of what we're working under. So I would, if you were to make a motion to permanently table this item, I would certainly second that.
Yeah, I would make a motion to permanently table our select board's roles, policies, and procedures draft first, and then I'll make another motion about the handbook for Massachusetts selectmen.
So I second the motion to permanently table what you said. I vote yes.
Yes.
Okay, so it's permanently tabled.
And can I make another motion on this topic? I would make a motion to post the handbook for Massachusetts selectmen produced by the Mass Municipal Association to our website, as a PDF or as a link, so that we can have access. Obviously, we have access to it, but it can be easily viewable by members of the public who want to know what the select board's role is.
I second that.
So the only thing I'm not aware of is if I can post a link to that. I'm not sure if you have to be a member of the MMA to be able to access that. I want you to be aware that I need to look into it
So
first.
could it be posted as a PDF, or do we have to get the permission? Is it?
No, you don't have to be a member. I got it
You
off
can
the
access it
computer.
without a login?
You can get it right
Okay,
off
I
the
just wanted to
computer.
make sure, because
Okay, well, we'll post a link if you can, and if you can't, we will post a PDF of the actual document. So people will be
It's
able to
right on their
access
website. I got it off their website. You don't have to be a member.
okay.
Good. So I voted yes. Yes? I second your motion, I vote yes.
My vote is yes.
So we're gonna make that available to the public. Access to council draft policy. So our current legal counsel seems to wants to have a better policy on how people reach them, because right now everybody and their brother sending email requests to council, and quite frankly, I don't think that's what they signed up for. So council, it's my understanding that council came up with their own contacting town council policy. Justin, have you had a chance to read it?
Yeah. They did. It was Brian Riley mostly rewrote it, but he did take some of our general ideas from the draft that we had produced for his comments. And I thought the way that Brian Riley wrote it was good. And I really had no changes. I would make a motion to approve the council contact policy as, amended by Brian Riley.
If it's not long, could you read it for the public record?
You want me to give you a clean version without all the edits in it?
Yeah, but before we vote, sorry to, did you include, because I know that Jonathan Levin made a suggestion, and I thought it was pretty good.
So I didn't, because I assumed that you guys would approve these changes and then have me send it out again, because I thought they were pretty substantial what he changed.
Okay, so why don't we read in the, what the council wrote, and then we'll vote on that, and then if we have to make any further amendments, down the line, we'll just do that. But let's get it let's get it done.
You want a clean one to read?
I just don't know if this is a.
Here, I'll give you a clean.
Yeah, I don't want to read the wrong, I have different versions of it, it's the problem, because they come in many different formats. So I don't want to read the wrong one and end up getting in trouble. I don't want to get in trouble. How is everybody? Okay, all right, we're getting there, I think we're wasting a lot of paper here. Okay, and Justin, follow along, make sure I'm reading the correct one, okay?
Mhm.
On location. This is contacting about council, whereas the town of Monterey, through its select board, directs and supervises the use of town council. Whereas the select board intends to identify appropriate use of town council's time with an appropriate protocol, the select board hereby adopts the following policy. 1, the chair of the select board shall act as a liaison to town council. 2, department heads and chairs of multi-member bodies may request authorization to contact town council for matters not requiring confidentiality by presenting the same in writing to the select board for its approval. Only department heads, chairs of boards, committees, commissions may request to contact town council. Regarding questions from town multi-member bodies, unless a matter requires confidentiality, the majority of the bodies shall, prior to bringing the issue to the select board, approve the question in open session. 3, for matters that would require the advice of town council to be requested and or provided in confidence and or of an nature, the chair of the select board as liaison to town council shall be authorized to approve access to town council. If the chair authorizes such actions, the chair shall notify the select board of the same at its next meeting. Provided, however, if the question was asked in confidence, it will be subject to the attorney-client privilege. The chair shall simply inform the board that a request to contact town council was approved. 4, to the extent that a town government body or official requires additional contact with or advice of council in connection with an approved matter or a matter incidental and related thereto, no further select board approval shall be required. Notwithstanding the provisions of the prior sentence, however, the select board chair shall be notified of any additional contact with the town council and shall be copied on any written correspondence to or from town council, whether formal or informal. 5, almost done. 5, the select board at its discretion and only as necessary or appropriate may authorize contact with town council concerning matters outside the requesting board or official's jurisdiction and or may authorize the chair of the select board to approve the same. To the extent appropriate, the select board chair shall cause notice to be sent to the board with respect to which the question is being asked. 6, only the select board may authorize the use of special counsel. 7, confidential legal advice sought or received by town government bodies or officials should only be discussed in open session if absolutely necessary, understanding that such action will likely void the protections of the attorney-client privilege. Likewise, the select board or any government body or official authorized to seek advice from town council may only meet in executive session to discuss such matters as permitted by the open meeting law and in strict compliance therewith. 8, town council has been instructed to forward any request for legal services to the chair of the select board to ensure that council is properly authorized to reply. If not authorized to reply, the chair will notify the requester and town council of the same. 9, town council may not respond directly to any legal inquiries other than as set forth herein. Please feel free to contact us should you have any questions regarding this policy. Sincerely, and it has 3 signature lines for the members of the board. Yes, we have somebody in the audience.
Nancy Tomasovich has her hand up.
Yes, Nancy.
Who wrote all these points of order here?
Council.
Who wrote this?
Town council?
Who wrote the draft?
Town
Town
council.
council.
Town council, and there was no input from you or the town administrator?
I'm not understanding.
Well,
the implication.
to clarify Nancy's question, this issue came up, I think it was a couple weeks ago, and we got a letter from council saying that we needed to get a council contact policy together. We looked at the old council contact policy. I made significant edits, and then we agreed at last week's meeting to send it out to department heads and board chairs. We received a couple comments from board chairs, and Brian Riley, who's our attorney, we sent it along to him for comments, and he kept a lot of it the same, which is that most requests to contact council will go through the select board. In particular, a lot of it's the same. He wrote it more clearly and denoted the select board chair as the liaison. But the principles are generally the same, where if someone wants to contact town council, they make a request to the select board.
What if the complaint is against the chair? And it doesn't say that the whole board has a decision. It says that the chair has the decision on whether or not complaints can be discussed with town council.
Actually,
And are you comfortable with giving that much power to the current chair?
I know you don't have it in front of you, but I have the version in front of me. And point number 2, it starts with department heads and chairs of multi-member bodies may request authorization to contact town council for matters not requiring confidentiality by presenting the same in writing to the select board for its approval. So it does go in front of the whole board unless it is a confidential or emergency matter, but the select board will still be notified that council was contacted. So it maintains some of the same principles, that the select board will stay up to date and informed and approved council contacts.
And what if the complaint is against the chair?
Well, we contact council regarding legal questions, not really complaints. But I think if for some reason there was a confidential issue that the chair couldn't be privy to, I mean, maybe that's a question worth asking council. I can't think of a scenario necessarily in my mind, but the idea is that one of the ideas of this policy is that boards act as boards, and so that the select board as a whole will approve and be aware of contacts to council.
How are you acting as one singular board when most of the points say that the liaison and everything goes through the chair? So how are you acting as one board?
So I think the point of liaison is that's the person who actually sets up the communication. But it's still like, let's say a department head wants to contact council, they have a question. it goes before the whole board for approval. It says that in the document. In cases,
Please reread some of the points of order that it appears that the chair has all of the control with the town council to discuss complaints, to discuss legal action, and then it will be filtered to the other board of selectmen.
Gotcha. Okay,
so I
so
think,
can I answer? Justin, Justin, can I answer? Let me answer. Let me just answer over here because while I really enjoyed the back and forth over here, let me just make the following 2 points. The council, sorry for my voice, ladies and gentlemen. But he's remote, so I gotta screen. So this particular policy is quite close to, and maybe almost exactly, the policy that all select boards in Monterey have had since there was an actual policy. That's the first, okay? And we've survived, by the way, all right? And the second point is this, and obviously, if there is a legal matter that impacts the chair, the chair is going to recuse themselves from participating in any of the direction to the council. And that's always been the case also. So these 2 things are generally covered. And the last thing is this, if you try to make policies that, against one person because they happen to be chair, well, so generally everybody is chair at different times. So everybody is sitting on the select board, everybody, is going to be the chair at one point. So to come up with policies that are either pro the chair or against the chair, is ridiculous because the next year somebody else is going to be the chair. And so those are my points. So, I'm sorry, one last point. The council made it very clear that if we didn't come up with a policy that was in these lines, that they would resign and we'd have to find new counsel. So I don't know where that helps, if that helps at all, the people of Monterey.
Susan Cooper has her hand.
Hi, Susan.
I think it's important to point out to Nancy and perhaps to some others that this is about getting advice on legal matters that are relevant to the town. I realize complaints are the main thing that seem to be on everyone's mind these days, but as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals who've actually had legal matters, I can tell you that ours are usually about legal matters and not about complaints, personnel or otherwise. And I honestly think if we were spending more of our time focusing not on everyone complaining, but on matters relevant to the town, there would be an awful lot less strife right now. So let's keep this policy about what it's supposed to reflect and not about worrying about who's complaining about who.
And on that note, Justin, do you have a motion?
well, I think since it has substantially changed, should we send it back? Like, I know John's comment was actually on the old policy. Is it worth, I think in general, this is more or less, what we had sent out, but should we send it to boards and department heads again for further comments just before we approve it? I know, like I
Hang on, I thought he was gonna talk, go ahead.
I'm sorry, my recommendation is to approve this policy, as written, by town council, distribute this policy to the boards and committees. And again, we are, if there's some specific problem with any part of this language, that we have that discussion with town council, but at least we'll have a policy in place so that we can move forward and conduct town business. So that's.
Well, I know it's slower, but I would say, I thought, like you said, John's comment was good on the last draft. And so I would think it'd be worth sending out just before we approve. That's what I'm gonna is why don't we send this out again to department heads, board and committee chairs? If they have good comments like they did last time, we got at least one, constructive comment, and then we can approve it next week. Based on.
Justin, I anticipate another 15 letters going to town council following this meeting. All right, and their response to the various communications that they've been getting is, we can't take it anymore. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, and we're going to resign. So I mean, this is what they want. This is perfectly reasonable. They are our town council. We need them. And my strong suggestion is that we approve it. And then again, if there are individual changes or things like this that we can bring up with them, as they move along. But some boards and commissions move fast and will make a decision. Some of them won't. And I don't think we want to be in the position of being a month or two down the road without this policy.
Well, I'm not saying we want to seek approval from every board, committee and commission, but that's my, I don't like approving policies that affect other people without letting them know and have, giving them notice and then asking for comments. And it will just be, next week. So just like we sent it out last week, I feel like it's undergone major revisions and maybe we'll get more positive comments. So can we do that one more time? I know we're sending a lot out to department heads and chairs of boards. I just feel a lot better asking, letting people know what policies we're going to set that affect them before we set that policy to see if they have comments. So let's just wait, hold out for a week and get comments.
I think, okay, listen, it's fine. I think personally, I think it's a mistake, because again, I could think of at least two people that have already chimed in over here that are going to be writing emails to town council. So, and they're not going to be happy about it. So I'm just trying to avoid any more disruption with council. But if you think a week will do it, I'm not going to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to put an undue burden on them, and I hope people who department heads and people who work for town use abide really use town council judiciously and go through the process. I just don't want to pass a policy without getting the information first. So let's go next week and let's send this out one more time, as amended, and see if we get any more good comments, and then go from there and approve it next week.
Okay, well, we're gonna put it on a next week agenda. Highway Planning Commission recap discussion with Sean, Jim, and Melissa. So Justin, what you had a meeting?
Yes, I was seeking to potentially form the Highway Planning Commission again, which it sounds like it's probably not a bylaw and not required, but I thought could be, potentially, if appointed with the right people, could help plan for the highway department, which is something that, the highway director of operations already does. The town administrator and the select board and the finance committee already do in collaboration. But I was thinking a citizen committee might be helpful that's dedicated solely to that purpose, because a lot of the other people involved have many different purposes and may not get to highway planning all the time. But through discussion with the director of operations and soon to be director of operations, it sounds like with the changes that they're undergoing, it doesn't make sense to pursue the Highway Planning Commission at this time. And so we'll probably revisit next summer and talk about forming a Highway Planning Commission, which just to clarify for people who weren't at the meeting last week, would be a citizen group, maybe 5 people, 3 people, and would just try to work in collaboration with those other players that I listed to plan for medium to long-term goals, financial planning, equipment replacement, road planning, etc. But we're going to hold off on that until next year and reconsider.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, let's move on. New business, town administrator items, FY '23 and FY '24 insurance renewal proposal. Guarantee.
Right, Maya is offering, if we sign on to the 2-year guarantee proposal, that we'll have a rate change of 0% for fiscal year '23 and up to 2.5% for fiscal year '24 for our property liability and workman's compensation insurance.
So it averages out to 1.25% per year. I think Maya has done a great job with us. I'm glad that they're doing it this way, because I think FY '23 is going to be kind of a rebuilding year after COVID. And so the impact will be minimal on taxpayers, and 24 hopefully will be in the middle of the boom times. So I would vote to approve the 2-year insurance renewal at the 0% for FY '23 and the 2.5 for FY '24 with Maya.
Second.
Okay, I vote yes.
And yes.
Okay, great. Complaint filed with regard to item number 3 below. Oh, okay, number 3, this is me. So I'll just be brief here again. There were some documents that were leaked to the press for a Berkshire Eagle article. This is something where, regardless of where you stand, this is just not right. Because these are ongoing investigations, and some of them may actually open the town up to a great deal of liability, or the town officers individually, or other people to liability. So I did reach out to, so in matters of a security breach, I did reach out and sit down with the chief of police, and he was going to contact the Berkshire Eagle to try to get the evidence back if there's further investigation. He also did suggest that when we have an investigator hired, that we actually include that as part of the investigation. I also did reach out to town council, because again, there's a great deal of liability that the town is exposed to now. Town council did make some recommendations. However, they also did their question of actually determining who actually did this. So again, I'm going to say for the record that I, Stephen Weiss, did not do this, and I will be willing to sign an affidavit to that effect. I'm asking the other board members if they did this, and the town deserves an answer.
Well, Steve, like you said, I think this warrants an investigation, and I think it warrants an investigation, and I think maybe also the way it's being presented is too simplistic, and there may be other people involved inadvertently, and they, let's investigate it, and I don't think there's anything that we can solve here in this meeting.
I'm not looking to solve it. All I'm just asking is a yes or no from each of the.
Have I been leaking confidential documents? No, I have not been leaking confidential documents.
So you did not send those documents to Heather Bello in a plain white envelope? Just say, if you didn't do it.
I haven't sent a letter. I don't send letters.
I'm not talking about letters in general. Did you?
Did I send Heather Bello confidential complaints? No, I have not. No, I don't think this is the appropriate venue. And I don't think, I think people, I don't know. This is not an appropriate way to review or investigate the issue.
I'm not investigating anything, I'm just asking one question that would be asked of me.
Yes.
Okay, so audience member, we got an audience member, hands up.
Nancy Tomasovich had her hand up first.
I was just saying you're badgering Justin when he said he already didn't do it. We all know Melissa gave them to Don, and he admitted it in the Google group in writing.
All right, so
End of story.
She's making accusations.
I just want to point out for the record that one of the documents that was leaked was only in possession of the select board and the complainant. So it was not me
And town
or
council.
Don.
And town council. Just again,
Ellen Coburn has her hand up.
okay, hi.
I just want to say thank you to Steve for stating that he didn't do it because it feels good as a citizen to hear that. We all know that it's just a personal statement. We don't know all the details, but it's a very good feeling as a citizen to have a selectman say, I didn't do it. It's just reassuring. And Justin, I thank you. I don't think anybody should badger you, and I agree that there shouldn't be a lot of talk about it at the meeting. I don't want to go on and on. But the second thing is what Melissa just said was what I was going to say. Nancy Tomasovich doesn't seem to grasp that the sexual harassment complaint was in no one's hands except the selectmen. And so therefore, only one of the selectmen could have sent it or given it to someone else to send
Ellen,
it.
that's actually not fair to say.
And I know that Terry had it. I know that Terry had it, but Terry didn't have the others. So somebody had to put them all together in an envelope. But I don't want to
Let
talk about it.
Justin speak.
No, I was speaking, and so someone's interrupting me. I'm not finished. I'll stop in a minute. I just wanted to say that what Melissa said was accurate. And I appreciated Melissa's
No, it's
point.
actually a misrepresentation of the facts. But we can't discuss this.
Oh, go ahead then. Let me hear, Justin. I'm interested.
Do you want to have this discussion offline, so we can continue?
Oh, okay.
No, I just want to let people know that this is a misrepresentation of the facts, and we can't go into it.
So obviously there's something else there that you don't know about, that we don't know about. It's a misrepresentation of facts. Justin just said it. The select board will have to take it up.
Okay, so let's move on now, to the other issues. Okay, there's,
So that would be
you know what, instead of, Justin, I'd like to make a motion to, I'd like to make a motion right now to talk about, number 2, and to skip over C and D right now, so that we can actually get on going down the line. You got a second for that?
My computer, I forgot to get my charger, and it is not gonna necessarily make it. Sorry, technical difficulty. Sorry, where are we at? So we finished through 1B. Hello?
So maybe Justin comes back in here. His computer's
Can you just come back in here, Justin, if your computer's not working?
You're gonna get filed. You're gonna get a complaint again anyway.
Come on in.
You're here, you're not here.
We'll wait for you.
Justin, don't do it. It's a setup.
Oh, come on, Nancy.
What did she say?
It's a setup.
Jesus Christ.
Quick, put the birthday candle away.
just have it noted that everybody's on camera is laughing at that, as well as the audience.
I'm not paranoid, just everybody's against me.
We're not all laughing, by the way.
Ours, Rebecca Wolin.
Okay. Is he caught in traffic? Does somebody want to?
Shutting his thing and.
You can't do sweeping brushes. Not everyone is laughing. That's all I'm saying.
I said everybody who had their camera on, Rebecca. You don't have your camera on.
Okay, all right, so, and this signifies that he is still remote. This is a,
A wall between.
okay. All right, so I'd like to, we're going down a little hole here with C and D, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to skip C and D right now and go down to number 2, and let's continue down. Is that okay?
Okay.
With you, Justin? Okay. Number 2, vote to send the requested special act approved and a letter to town legislative delegation. This is specifically in reference to the 63-11 vote by the citizens of the town of Monterey for the recall petition that was amended on the floor at the special meeting on Saturday. I understand this is the next, as per town council, this is the next step, and it is a vote to send this special act to approve it and to send a letter to the town legislative delegation. So I make a motion to do so.
Second,
I vote yes.
yes.
You feel trapped in any way? Okay. So that's what we're gonna do.
I have a letter here.
Number 3, I've already discussed, so it's no longer a thing. Number 4 is very important, investigation and timeline. So, the board did vote to engage the services of an investigator, and for the purposes of investigating everything. And on Saturday, the townspeople did vote in the money, $10,000, to pay this investigator. Since that time, the investigator has written to the board and has asked to decline to be the investigator. Yes.
So going off of that, we interviewed 3 candidates, right? Paul Italian, Alan Gould, and Corinne Hood Green. And based on the interviews and the issues that we're dealing with, I feel like we might ask Corinne Hood Green if she would be willing to offer her services to Monterey. Because it seems like, obviously, part of the reason we hired Paul was because of the price point. I remember I was at least impressed by Corinne Hood Green, and obviously town meeting voted for the funding. And she has a lot of experience on her website and through our interview in some of the types of matters that we're dealing with. And she also said that she could take a look at everything and then offer solutions going forward, which is not something that Paul or Alan necessarily offered. So I would make a motion for the board to seek the services of Corinne Hood Green, and she agreed to a scope with her to return to the people that we interviewed.
So, we had 3 people, we had 3 investigators. My concern about her is, I thought all 3 investigators were offering, services they were offering were gonna be beneficial to the town. However, my concern about Ms. Green is that, while the first 2 investigators were charging the town $25 an hour and $150 an hour respectively. I may be incorrect about the 150, it's 153 or something like that. Anyway, the third investigator, they were charging $350 an hour. And my concern is that since there's a fixed amount of money that we can spend on these investigations, and these investigations seem to be very extensive, that the amount that we're literally going to get half the amount of investigation time from Ms. Green that we would from it from NBI or whatever that the name of the second people are. And I'm not just, again, this is not just a dollars and cents issue. I got no problem. I mean, we should have the best on this. But since the scope has gotten larger and larger and getting larger every single day, I'm very concerned that that at $350 an hour, this is not going to be a $30,000-$40,000 affair.
So 2 points. My first point being that money can no longer be that kind of an issue, because this is much more important. The issues that we're dealing with, it needs to have, we need to get on it sooner than later. We're already months behind, and it's only creating more problems. And I think, first of all, Corinne's associate will work at a reduced rate of $225. And I think based on her interview and looking at her website, she will actually be able to sift through and look for the bigger picture. Whereas Alan was through his interview and looking at his website, was a lot more like Paul. And I really think, I feel strongly that the board should move forward with Corinne, because I feel that she will provide the best services for our situation. And I don't think that we can continue to talk about the money, because this is a very important and timely matter.
Okay, so let me just answer Justin quickly, and then we're out there. So unfortunately, as we're public servants, okay, and the way it works in town government is the townspeople approved a fixed amount of money. And so whether we like it or not, we have to work within the scope of what was approved by the townspeople. And so there's no possibility of deficit spending. I mean, we can't go over it. So we would have to actually say at the mark, say no.
Well, we do have access to the reserve fund, and potentially, and we don't know because we haven't interviewed. We haven't gone further with Corinne Hood Green, but I just think it has to be about the services and dealing with the problems and getting to the root of the problems. And I feel strongly that we should move forward with Corinne Hood Green. And she's gonna offer, she said in an interview that she'll offer solutions to move forward with it, which is not something that Alan is gonna offer.
I understand that, but, okay, all right, anyway, let's let the public chime in.
I want to speak strongly.
Who's first?
I was. I want to speak strongly in support of Justin's position on this. As you know, apart from the sexual assault complaint, I've read many of the complaints. Although there are factual differences, they are in relationship to legal principles and to policies that are in the manual, such as mistreatment of another employee. I think that you're going to find that legal analysis in this case is far more important an approach than an investigator just asking questions and see who he believes or doesn't believe. Furthermore, she also emphasized, as Justin has, her ability and training to solve problems and bring people together. So I think it's well worth it. As far as the money part of it is concerned, she would have to be advised that at the moment, $10,000 is all that's available, but we can pay for $10,000 worth of work. I think she could do it in less than the number of hours to meet this. I really do. But if she needs to go over, Justin is also correct that we can ask the finance committee to use the reserve fund. It would be a good use for it. And that's not going against the town meeting. All the town meeting did was say, all right, gentlemen, you estimated $10,000. That sounds reasonable to us. They didn't make a decision saying that if you find the investigation may go beyond that, that then it would be inappropriate to go to the finance committee, or indeed to call for a special meeting. So I very strongly support Justin in this.
Thank you. Who was next?
And Mickey, I think, got her hand up.
I also agree with Justin. I was listening to, because I was here when you were interviewing them. I felt that both of the men who I think had been state cops were very black and white. We can say, yes, it's wrong, or no, it's right, but they had no feeling for the gray. And I think that we have a lot of gray. There's a big difference between black and white, and we need problems solved. We don't need to say, well, it's not exactly against the law, but it's a problem and it has to be addressed. And I felt that she really would address it. And personally, as a taxpayer, and I'm not one of the high-end ones, but I absolutely agree that this money should be spent. It is very, very important. And it's important that we get this done now and get back to where we can act as a social group of people, not people after each other.
Okay. Was Peter first, or?
Peter Marquette. At the low end, 225, I believe you said, for an assistant, she's going to have to complete the task in 44 hours. So I would ask Don, who suggested that Ms. Green might be able to do this in less time, if that kind of a figure for the lower rate is viable.
I think I can speak to that a little bit, Peter. I think the difference between Alan and Paul that we spoke with and Corinne is that Alan and Paul, you know, when we interviewed them, seemed very focused on fact-finding reports. And if you have a lot of facts to sift through, it can be tough to try and go through each individual one. You can get overwhelmed. Corinne seemed like she would more easily identify patterns, and that she's used to dealing with some of the types of problems that we're facing. And so I think she would do it in a more time efficient manner. I don't know, we have to speak with her, but what's our next step moving forward? And I strongly feel that Corinne Hood Green is our next step moving forward.
Well, then I think that, asking her what kind of report she could deliver for $10,000 is an important thing to do.
Yeah.
Can I answer a question of this?
Well, no, first, and then you.
Barbara Dolman, I'd just like to know the credentials of these three people.
So Paul L'Italian had been a state police officer for most of his life. He retired 5 years ago and became a private investigator. Alan Gould works for Municipal Resources Incorporated, I think, MRI, which is a municipal consulting firm. But he had also had a background as a police officer and worked within the investigative part of MRI. Corinne Hood Green is one of two founding partners of Green and Hafer, which is an employment law firm. And they also have some associates that work with them for things like investigation. So she is, I think it's fair to group Paul and Alan together, and Corinne is a much different operation. And she's a lawyer, but they also do investigations and consulting.
Peter,
Thank you.
let me just say this. I have a lot of experience in this area myself. I have represented clients in this area. I've sat as judge in many, many cases where people were alleging harassment, sexual harassment, and so on. Uh, If, I would be satisfied to guarantee, if I were doing it, that I could do it for less than $10,000. Because it's 90% an analysis of what people have written and whether what they've written amounts to harassment and so on. And I think she could easily do it.
Okay.
I really do.
Well, it's somebody in the audience.
Nancy Tomasovich.
I have a couple of questions. What happened to the original investigator that you hired?
He resigned. He decided he doesn't want to do it.
Why?
He, I guess he was under the assumption that we had a certain type of, that we were requesting certain services when we interviewed him, because we weren't speaking about them because it was an open session with an interview. And it sounded like from his email, when he met with us to discuss the scope of investigation, it was not what he was expecting from the interview. And I think.
What does that mean? It was the scope.
Well, we weren't able to discuss confidential personnel information with him until we met in executive session, at which point he had some idea about what we were dealing with, and it was different. And like I said, I think based on the interviews and looking at their websites, which I've said a lot of times, but Corinne Hood Green, and I think we were scared off by the price, unfortunately, which is, we
Okay,
shouldn't.
so I'm just trying to understand why a professional would resign to do a investigation. Did he feel it wasn't enough money? Did he feel that the scope was greater than what he was originally told? What?
I don't know.
Mean,
I don't
is
know
that
if
letter of
there's-
public record?
It's, I'm not sure about that, but, it should be noted, he did not agree to the job and then resign. He declined before he ever agreed to do the job. I just
So
think that should be.
was the scope too large for him?
Okay, this is not 20 questions.
No, I'm just curious because most people don't walk away. The next question I have is,
He didn't want to do it, and so he sent his letter, he says, I don't want to do it, and that's it.
okay,
And so we're not,
so
now we're going on to the next person.
maybe to save on funds, the board should decrease the scope to just very key complaints, because 44 hours is not a lot to find facts, to find patterns, to look at history and behavior. It's quite a bit. 44 hours is not very much for the supposed, from what I've seen, 13 complaints.
Did you just say what she's seen of the 13 complaints?
Yeah, okay, so.
No, and that's what I've seen in the Google group. I don't know.
They're very good points. Thank you.
I've never seen one complaint.
Susan Cooper
Other
has her
than the
hand
one I
up.
wrote myself.
Susan.
Susan.
She just
I just want to say that among the concerns that were raised the other day, I'm totally in support of going forward with Justin's suggestion. In particular, among the concerns that were raised at the meeting are that some of the complaints involve members of the select board, either as complainants or as people filing the complainants or people being accused in the complaints, which will make it difficult for the select board to be the adjudicating body. The other thing this opportunity offers is that if they're going to propose solutions or resolutions, that means that there's no need for select board members to recuse themselves from that position. And I believe there are complaints involving all 3 select board members. This gives us a neutral third party to deal with that situation, which the straight up investigators would not provide.
Okay. So, I partially agree with that, Susan. Actually, I think the other 2 investigators would have been impartial as well. But listen, if it sounds like the public is open to this this law firm. Justin, I am, again, I have made my, I'm fearful of, again, not everybody, it wasn't unanimous when the townspeople voted in the $10,000. There were a lot of people that didn't like the idea of it. And so, I am concerned that, remember, every dollar that we spend on these investigations, we can't put it into our roads or our bridges, or other things in town that, that may be, or the library. Sorry, just joking, Mickey. But no, I'm concerned of allocation of resources, and that's part of my job, all right? So, however, that being said, I would have no problem, bringing in, Ms. Green and we're gonna have to do an executive session describing the scope of work to her and then, seeing if she, and the limitations that the townspeople, that did place upon us, financially, and I understand we can always look for more funds, but we have to be straight up with her. But if we explain all of that and she says she can do it, then that's fine with me.
Janet Jensen has her hand up.
Hi, Janet.
Just quickly, I was one of the people that voted against the investigator because I felt we needed more like a mediator, HR person. And it seems like this other candidate that you're talking about now did have those qualifications. So, and I think, I agree. I bet she can get a lot done in that scope. Anyway, so I totally endorse what you're going for now.
Okay. So, yeah, so make the motion.
So I'd make a motion that the board seek the services of Corinne Hood Green for the purposes of investigating personnel issues and providing a report, with, findings and ways forward.
Okay. I just want to amend your motion that, just to continue it, that we bring in this, I'm sorry.
Well, we'll have to do the same thing that we did with Paul, right? We have to meet with him and discuss
Bring
our
them in.
expectations.
Right, we'll bring them in our executive session, okay, the same posting that we did previously. But you're going, that you have permission to, if you would like to be the one to reach out.
Yeah.
Schedule.
Because I scheduled
or
her
Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
No?
If you're hoping to do it next week, it would have to be, gonna post that on Friday.
Is tomorrow a holiday? So that would be for Tuesday. Tuesday.
Tomorrow's Veterans Day.
So
Tuesday or
why don't
Thursday?
we plan on Tuesday at 6 p.m.? I just feel like
Tuesday. Okay, Tuesday,
time,
all right,
yeah.
Tuesday's fine.
Tuesday at 6 p.m.
But again, part of that motion is that, but I wanna make sure that we explain to her the, not only the scope, but also what's been approved by town meeting, so that there are no surprises.
Yeah.
You have a problem with that? All right, then I second that motion, or do you have to approve the amended motion? You approve, I move that we approve the amended motion.
Second.
Okay, I have to say yes?
Yes.
Okay, then, that was you're approving the amendment, now we're approving the whole motion as amended, and I second that. Or, I move that we approve the whole motion as amended.
Second.
I say yes?
Yes.
Yes. Don't wanna get in trouble. Okay, terrific. Okay, so this is something great. I'm sorry that we had to that we had to wait such a long time to get to this, Peter. You made a request to lead a photovoltaic working group, basically alternative energy, but really specifically about solar.
Yeah, the details that are important are photovoltaic facility owned by the town on town property. A working group, which I would lead, of not more than 6 people appointed for 1-year term. And what I would like is, if you are willing to appoint me to lead that working group, I would like authority to choose those 6 people. And then I'd also like to know from the select board what, you know, what your vision is of my authority and the limits on my authority and posting of meetings, vulnerability to open meeting law, kinds of complaints.
So first of all, it should be an odd number of people that, on your thing, so you can have, so that you don't wanna have tie votes. So,
Then that would be 5.
5 or 7. The second thing is that, everybody who would become a member of your group would get a link to the open meeting law, itself, so that they could familiarize themselves, to the open meeting law and how to proceed. And obviously, if you have any questions or you need guidance, you can always seek that with the town administrator or any of the board members or the clerk. The board would have to, what you do is you would collect people who'd want to be in it, and then you come back to a board meeting and you, it's the board, and say, I'd like you to appoint so-and-so, 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 so-and-so to the Monterey. Can we call it Monterey Lights the Way? Or anyway, to what your group is. So that's the way it would work. Like, we're going to right now appoint somebody to Lake Garfield Working Group. That was a working group that was formed by the select board. And so this is the same, this would be sort of the same thing, that the select board is, that we're gonna form this group. And then the idea is, just like in the Lake Garfield Working Group, and you can have to talk to Steve Snyder, by the way, because it's sort of the same pattern.
I did.
Okay, well, good. So the idea is, when you come up with ideas, then basically you bring these ideas, you vote about, you do the exploration, you vote about amongst yourselves, and then you basically bring these ideas or suggestions or to the board, and then the board votes on that. Now, obviously, if it requires an expenditure of money, then it's gonna have to go to town meeting.
Sure.
But I think it's, and I think it's absolutely terrific. I think that we should definitely, like, explore, the way the solar these days is different than solar 5 years ago. And, it's much more efficient, and all these towns are doing it. And I would also suggest that your group not only looks at town-owned land, but where you can do public-private partnerships. Again, with places like Gould Farm or Hume, or some places that have large expanses of property. But also you can talk to private owners who might want to put in the field and figure it out. But look at what other towns are doing, because some towns are doing it very well. But I think I think that'd be one of the best things that we do as a board in this session.
So for concrete steps forward, would it make sense to post the purpose of the group? Which I don't know if we have any amendments, I thought was good, the way that you wrote it, to the town website to seek interested applicants, does that make sense?
As long as I have final say.
I don't know, because the select board is the appointing authority. I don't know to what degree that role can be delegated, but I don't see why we couldn't consult you and on people that are going to be appointed.
The more specific you get in your mission statement, I think the better you'll get people that are just there for that reason. I know it's worked out that way on the Lake Garfield Working Group.
Well, I don't want to assume a problem. I wouldn't anticipate for a board or a working group that consists of 5 people, I wouldn't anticipate, having to choose among a much larger group. But I would just.
So there's one other way of doing it, by the way. Okay, I'll just put this out there, because we had this with broadband, right? So at one point we had a formal broadband committee, right? And so that's where we put it out to the public and people who joined it. But then at the end, when broadband, when it basically got resolved, some people still wanted to talk about broadband, but outside the scope of the select board. So what they did is they formed an ad hoc committee, which is not governed by the select board, which is not governed by the, I don't, not technically governed by the open meeting law. It's just a group of people to talk about it. And then then it, you know, so you theoretically you could do that, and then if you get a group that you're comfortable with, then you can come to the select board and ask to have a formalized group. So, you know, the thing is this, with an ad hoc group though, the select board is powerless to really enact what you come up with. Unless you do that as a citizen petition, but if you really want change, immediate, you know, something immediate, I would go the select board route. But you may get one or two people on the group that, you know, have.
So you're saying that this sort of ad hoc group could be formed whatever way, and then present itself as a group to the select board?
It could be done that, it could be done that, right?
Imprimatur?
Yeah, it could be done.
The thing is, at the end of the day, and I don't know the particulars, but the board is the appointing authority, and I don't know to what degree that role can be delegated. So at the end of the day, if there are people being appointed in town, in my understanding, now, the library trustees, there's an exception, and they kind of appoint their own new trustee if someone resigns, that's later on the agenda, in conjunction with the select board. So, there's different things, but since the board is the appointing authority, if you're gonna be an official town group, it's probably gonna be appointed by the select board. But would it make sense for us to post that purpose and name of the group on the town website like we have for the town charter committee and bylaw review committee to find interested people who are willing to work with you?
Well, supposing you do that, and there are 15 people, and the board is limited to 5, who makes those decisions?
Well, that's also coming up for the bylaw review committee, because we have more candidates than seats, and I don't know what have boards done, what.
So boards have appointed primary and alternates. We did that with like Orfield Working Group. You can do that. We're gonna say, well, listen, I like to have these 5 people as the primary, and then the rest of the people can be part of the group, but they're an alternate, so they're not voting, but they're there.
And anyone could show up to a meeting, because it'd be posted, and have their voice heard, they just wouldn't participate in votes, right, if they're not officially a member. And those votes would determine what you officially advise the select board. But, you know, I may well go to the meetings and hear what the suggestions and discussions going on are. And the official recommendations, you know, carry a certain weight, but that doesn't mean that's
So when we do
the
this,
only thing the group produces.
can I make a recommendation? You wanna think about it for a week? 'Cause I feel like we put you on the spot a little bit, and
I mean, what you described as an ad hoc group that does some legwork on its own and kind of has an opportunity to judge its cohesiveness and effectiveness and commitment, that then approaches the select board, sounds like, to me, like a more efficient way to proceed. And that's my primary
it'll just
concern.
spread out the timeline a little bit between what you research and what you can actually accomplish. And that's the only difference, I think. So.
I think one advantage of being a working group, like Garfield Working Group, is that you would have more, you would be a posted meeting, and so other people could attend if they want to, and offer their input. But I don't know what exactly you're looking for. And maybe have access to town resources, like town council in a way that you might not if you are not an official town body.
Come up with a policy. Oh, we didn't come.
Okay, we'll go ahead on that basis. Do meetings have to take place at the town offices?
You have to
If
be-
you're ad hoc, it doesn't have to.
No, if you're an official group, it
has to take place at a place that's handicap accessible and accessible to the public.
Okay. If you're telling me that the shortest line to, a real world proposal and action is to be a designated, a working group designated by the select board, like the Lake Garfield working group, then that's my preference.
That's 100%. That's 100%.
Then that's my preference.
Okay.
So you want to be like the Lake Garfield working group?
So,
Or working group. So should we post it online and?
yeah, so first we have to create it.
Uh-huh.
So, what's the official name of the
Will
group?
you, to what, and I should have discussed this with you before the meeting, but to what extent are you tied to photovoltaic as opposed to solar energy?
No, same
What's
thing.
the difference?
Same thing.
My thinking for in favor of solar energy is that people would more readily understand what the group is for, but photovoltaic may be more.
And also, it's my understanding, but somebody correct me if I'm wrong, the photovoltaic is solar panels that just produce electricity as opposed to other solar panels that heat water, so that there are different types of solar panels.
Maybe you just should add in all kinds of, alternative energy. And that way you could broaden your scope rather than just keep it at solar or voltaic. If you decided during your meetings to broaden your scope, then you could do that through the title of the group.
Yeah, I understand that, and I think renewable sources of energy as opposed to electricity perhaps. But I have an interest in keeping the focus narrow and doing something.
Okay, as reflected.
To the extent that it becomes broad, opportunity to bloviate increases.
So my suggestion would have been, it would be something like Monterey Solar Working Group.
That's fine.
Does that
That's
cover
fine.
the bases? Monterey Solar and Working Group.
Or solar and renewable, or renewable energy working group.
That's even better. You said you want to keep it, okay, so the Monterey Renewable Energy Working Group.
Yes.
I make a motion that we create. Monterey.
Just before we do, I thought you were focusing on solar energy because you wanted to keep it narrow.
Well, that was my original intent. But I'm fine with renewable. I think I can still keep it focused.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. So I make a motion that this board create the Monterey Renewable Energy Working Group. We appoint Mr. Marquette as the first, that we appoint him as first member of it. With the understanding that that this group will be up to 5 voting members. 5 plus alternates, non-voting alternates. You can have non-voting alternates. You have 5.
Five voting members.
5 voting members. And that, you will conduct business under the guise of the open meeting law, there are public meetings, and you'll report back to the, so with each appointee, we will post it publicly, but, and then also if you have appointees, you contact the town administrator, put it on the agenda, you'd like to appoint so-and-so for the That's for the Monterey Renewable Energy Working Group.
I suggested in my email that members serve for one-year terms. Do you want to stagger that
I would suggest that you appoint everybody for 1 year terms.
from the beginning?
Yes.
Okay.
And are we going with the purpose that had been drafted most recently for the group? Because I'd imagine we would want a defined purpose of the group.
Right, so the first action of the group, I'm glad that you mentioned this, Justin. So the first action of the group, once you are in panel, is to come up with a mission statement for the group.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Coker.
I'm gonna use the phrase point of order, but I don't mean it in the other sense.
Okay.
I'm a little concerned. The public records request by John, which I understand why you wanted to get by and deal with other stuff.
Unless it's
But,
solar powered, we're not talking about it right now.
yeah, just keep in mind that there are time limits. So that if you don't
Gotcha. So we
act
understand.
tonight, it's gonna put the records officer in a bind.
We're just in the middle of finalizing this group.
Yeah, we're gonna go back to it. However, it's my understanding that it's 10 working days.
But
10
just,
Yeah. Right. Let's go back to it. So did we covered everything? If you have any questions.
So do we want them to determine the purpose, or do we want to give them a mission?
So
Like, we had drafted up, it's 2 sentences, right? And it's on these documents, it's on my computer, which is dead. It's not helpful, because it's dead, but,
well,
would you like the purpose read?
yes, please.
This group of Monterey residents will research the potential for a town-owned photovoltaic system on town property in all its aspects, cost, funding, maintenance, environmental, economic, and aesthetic impact, etc., and report back to the select board.
okay, I think it's a little limiting, but if you're happy with it, I would,
I think
By
you
reason of the term photovoltaic?
no, because it specifically says it's gonna be a town-owned. Can I have a copy of that document? I'm sorry, too. I just wanna make sure
Okay,
you're not getting yourself in.
That's a good point. I think we could,
This group Monterey researched the potential for a, I would just, instead of town-owned photovoltaic system, I would change it to, potential for renewable energy projects, and then you can put in cost, funding, maintenance, environmental, aesthetic impact, and report back.
Let's keep it in all its aspects, right? To explain the next part.
Okay, so, renewable energy projects in all of its aspects. Okay, so potential for. So the board recommends, since Justin and I have just written it, that it would read, this group of Monterey residents will research the potential for renewable energy projects in all aspects, cost, funding, maintenance, environmental, economic, and aesthetic impact, incorporate, et cetera, and report back to the select board. This group is limited to 5 members appointed for a one year renewable terms, and the first report will be due within a year of its formation. So we're just giving you some breathing room here. We're just changing it to renewable energy projects in all aspects instead of town-owned photovoltaic systems. Because you may find, according to my research, you may find that there may be a better solution out there as a public-private partnership or something, like a deal with Gould Farm.
Well,
Or something,
why wouldn't we say that?
right, so that would be town-owned.
On town property and or public-private.
But you might be able to put it on somebody's private property and split the, split the costs, but that wouldn't be town-owned necessarily. We may own the panels, but we don't own the land. So in other words,
Wait, these are all things the group should look into, right? But we just wanna make for language that allows the group to look into these things, right?
Yeah, okay.
I'm afraid-
My reason for saying town-owned on town property was to convey the idea that the town, has ownership of this. That the town has, that it's a town effort, not just.
No, but there are just systems, there's some of these systems, and again, I know not a lot of it about this, but there are some systems where it's like the fire companies, Sean's here. We own the equipment, they own the building. There may be situations where the town can own the panels, but somebody else owns the land. Maybe it's vice versa. Maybe the town owns the land and we lease the panels. So there may not be full ownership of all the components of it.
I take your point.
You know what I'm saying? And we're just, again, it may be exactly what you said, but at least you have some,
You're
some wiggle
covered.
room. Yeah, you're covered. We want you to be covered because we don't want you to get in trouble, like we're all gonna get in trouble, but we don't want you to get in trouble. Okay, is that
So
right?
that will be published on the town website.
And if the group meets and wants to modify that, then you have a vote on it when you have the group.
But with that publication, we're off and running.
That would be your mission statement.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll post it, I was thinking maybe 3 weeks, puts us at December 1st. The first Wednesday after Thanksgiving, and then we could see what we have in terms of applicants.
The applicants will notify the select board.
I believe it goes to Melissa, admin at Monterey.
She will share it with you.
Okay.
And so maybe just to set a firm date to come back to this, does this Wednesday, December 1st work?
I would also suggest you talk to Steve Moore and maybe write a little article about it in the Monterey News.
So I'll second your motion to create the Monterey Renewable Energy Working Group.
Good. I vote yes.
Yes.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
You're gonna make a big difference in town, I think. All right, number 6, Veterans Day observance. There's going to be a Veterans Day observance tomorrow. I believe it's at 10 o'clock at the library. Is it 10 o'clock or 10:30?
10:30, I think, isn't it?
10:30?
10:30.
10:30, so don't go to it.
Possibly. Be in touch.
Okay,
Be in touch.
highway foreman
We'll have a conversation.
position recommendation. Did you get any applicants for highway foreman?
Yes, we have Jim Hunt on and we have Sean here. Either of you wanna take the lead on this?
The foreman recommendation.
John, you got an applicant for the foreman position?
Yes, we had an applicant for the foreman. We actually had 2. One failed to return any phone calls, emails, messages.
That's not good.
We
Also
did-
lived in Attleboro.
Yes, and he would have had to move a lot closer. So we tried, and
So you're down to one.
we're down to 1. We interviewed him last week, I forget when exactly. He's a very strong candidate. He's already a highway, works for a highway department, and
In Berkshire County?
yes, he lives 25 minutes from here, which is pretty good, about the best you're gonna get with employees these days. And he covers the full gamut, the mechanic, plows snow,
runs machinery. You can use more time in machinery, getting more sharpening that knife, but,
And does it seem that Jim is, Jim?
Jim is also on here. I'd like him to more speak to it because he's gonna be working for Jim, but, I fully support hiring him.
You recommend hiring?
Yes.
Jim, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I've actually dealt with this fellow a couple of times on some other projects, just more or less as conversation back and forth on some problem solving. And so we've already kind of started to work together on a few things. And I think that we can have a real bright future together. And he's got my recommendation for sure.
Those licenses that he needs?
Yes.
He has all the licenses that we need.
So we would be recommending that you hire Pete Wilson at the hourly rate of $26.33, and we'd like for you to match the 3 weeks of vacation that he's currently getting at the town he's working for. That's been a little bit of a sticking point.
He's currently getting 3 weeks of vacation. What are the other, what is our current crew getting in vacation?
Spread out.
Right, if you started as a new employee, you would get 1 week. But we have made this concession before.
Right.
To attract people.
Right.
To leave another town and come here.
He's not getting more vacation than Jim, is he?
Jim, are you getting
actually, I'm very close to that now. However, in fairness, I negotiated with some additional vacation at my start as well.
Okay, and the rate, compared to the current or the past highway foreman, is it the same?
It'd be the same rate.
Okay, then, what's his name?
Pete Wilson.
I make a motion to hire Pete Wilson as a highway foreman for the town of Monterey.
Second.
And we give him the 3 week vacation.
Yeah, second.
I vote yes.
Yes.
Okay, we got a crew. Good job.
He'll
Start
fit
filling
in
hours.
real well.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Jim.
you.
Can you go back to my thing now? So, because that's probably gonna be a lengthy discussion.
Okay, let's just finish the last two ones. Public records request by John Weingold. Mr. Weingold has made public records requests of the town administrator and of myself. So you want to answer?
So I guess I have two questions. I have a few days left to respond in under 10 days. When you made the rule that officials wouldn't be charged, you said I had discretion if it fell within a certain scope. So I would say that this does not fall within, and I would request that you support my decision to send him an estimate if he wants these. If you don't support that, then I would like to seek advice from council on this, because there are some, how would you describe it, Steve? We talked about this earlier.
Cuckoo bananas? No, sorry, that's not a legal term. There are some requests that don't fall within the realm of time and space. I'll give you an example for mine, but one of the requests is, quote, all documents that support you not anticipating on October 13th, 2021, you repeatedly motioned to change the executive session SB October 4th vote to have the TA immediately reinstated. So documents supporting that I'm not anticipating something. That's not possible on this planet. You cannot have a document that supports that you don't anticipate something. You can have a document support that you anticipate something, but the idea that you're not anticipating something, the whole idea of it is you're not anticipating it. So any documents that would exist that you're not anticipating it would mean that you would have access to a time machine. That's the only way to be able to not anticipate something or prove that you're not anticipating something. So given that as an example, I too, request, the statuted times, I believe it was 10 business days. And I am, consulting counsel on how to answer, some of these requests that just don't.
Even though it's not been approved by the board, you're gonna consult counsel on your own?
Well, I can, my idea is that, that this is, that there's gonna be action against me if I don't. I don't know how to answer these, Justin. I don't know how to answer I don't know how to answer to prove that I didn't anticipate something. It just doesn't make any sense. There's also requests here of every email discussion that basically has your name in it. But it's just your first name.
So
is it every Justin that I know? Because I know a few Justins. I just, listen, everybody has a right to ask questions, but if I send you an open meeting, a public records request, and I say, I want to have every email that you've ever sent in your entire life, or conversely, every time that you mention the word Monterey.
Steve, this isn't your job, this is the job of the records access officer.
Right, but I have to get the records from him.
I know, and what I'm saying is that
But I don't.
my concern here is that the records access officer position needs to be done consistently. The reason why we enacted this policy for Monterey was that I was seeking backup documentation on the Council on Aging report, and which I thought was part of my job as selectman, and I was going to be charged. And then over the course of months, I finally did get those documents at no charge after they didn't exist. This policy that we've created, this is not the first time it's run, it seems to have run wild. On September 14th, a town employee was requested to provide all communications with 13 people over 2 months with no topics listed. So every single communication with 13 people for 2 months. On September 13th, an anonymous requester asked for 8 months of communications with 12 people on 10 topics, emails and texts. And to go back to the public records request document, it says on pages 7 and 8 that requests can be narrowed by the records access officer. And when we were initially put that policy in place, there was concern. Will this be abused? Will there be frivolous requests? And John Silbert pointed out that the records access officer always has the ability to ask to narrow the scope to a more reasonable request for documents to be fulfilled. My concern is only that this be done consistently. So if one employee is gonna be asked for 8 months of communication with 12 people on 10 topics, and then.
So should we also point out that that person that's filling that one has not responded?
I'm just saying I want the records access officer position to be done consistently, that's all. And on one of these requests, the requester was kept anonymous and certainly was not brought to a select board meeting about how to deal with it. I think records access officer is not always an easy position and difficult things like this come up. But we have to trust that the records access officer will deal with them consistently. So if requests are gonna be narrowed or not, that is the records access officer's job. I just hope that it's done consistently and not for one person, they can request a slew of documents and for another person, it's gonna be shut down. I think, like we said, the reason why I felt comfortable and still feel comfortable with the policy that we have is that the public records handbook laid out by the state very clearly says that the records access officer can narrow requests to be reasonable. And that
So-
prevents frivolous requests. I just wanna make sure that we're always sticking to that, preventing frivolous requests, and not, in some cases, and not in others.
Okay, so, in my opinion, these requests that I have in my hand here are quite frivolous.
Well, but it's not for you to decide, that's the record access officer.
So, but here's the thing, here's the thing, one of the requests is all emails and texts between you and the records access officer concerning any public records requests. So basically, Mr. Weingold, is, so if I were to, well, first of all, I don't believe there are any, however, but the fact that that part of the public records request involves the records access officer, how do you work that out? I mean, because the complainant could say, or the petitioner could say, well, the record access officer removed any requests here, narrowed the focus, but by removing requests about public access officer. I mean, so
I'm just saying it needs to be done consistently, and frankly, the fact that topics are mentioned does not broaden it, it narrows it. This other request here was for 2 months of communications with 12 or 13 different people, and there were no topics listed. It's even broader, it just says everything, it's just, a shotgun blast, says everything that you've communicated to 13 people over 2 months, text, email, whatever. And so my concern here is only consistency, that's all. I think the public records handbook lays out pretty clearly that requests can be narrowed reasonably. And that's why we felt comfortable, or I felt comfortable enacting the policy that we did. But we aren't the records access officer, and if people have concerns with records access requests, they appeal to the state office, not to the select board.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'm seeking as the records access officer, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
Either permission to contact council on how to answer this one, because if I make the decision that you're saying I can make, I will be torn to shreds by this person. So I have been advised by council, my own council, that your council should answer this.
I think for me, consistency is key. And I don't think it's up to the select board to decide, when a request should be filled or not, because it's not a political issue. It's an issue of consulting with the state, records office. If people have an appeal, they go to the state office. It's very clearly laid out. It's not really a select board matter.
I really think you're confusing two things. It's true that if you said to Melissa as records access officer, estimate how much it'll cost to provide the documents that he's asked for, and reply as you would as a records access officer to limit them or whatever. That would be one thing. The problem is that the policy permitted somebody, just because they happen to be an elected official, to get for himself or herself free documents that no other person, no other citizen could get for free. So number one, you're giving that person a gift, frankly. And I
But
think
we
it violates.
did already, right? In September, we did, by granting these 2 requests, which are similarly large and frivolous.
What you may have done in the past is one thing. What you should do in the future is a separate thing. I think when you adopted the policy, what you intended was that someone could ask for records relating to the job. If they're records relating to the job, and you're on a board, you don't have any individual right to ask for them. You have to have an individual selectman has no power at all, other than the minimal power the chair has to work up the agenda. Other than that, you have to do everything together. To authorize one of you to get something for himself that nobody else in town could get for free is wrong. So I think that you should change the policy so it clearly says the records have to be related to the job. And because they have to be related to the job, the board should decide whether it's appropriate to get it for free. That's the problem.
Well, my problem is just consistency, and I think frankly, the fact that a requester of 8 months of communications with 12 people on 10 topics was kept anonymous.
Would you like to know who it is?
No, I'm just saying it was kept anonymous, and then this is on the agenda. I don't know who it is, and it doesn't necessarily matter. All I'm looking for is consistency.
Okay, but there is no consistency, so stop looking for it. This town nothing is consistent, okay? Things have escalated, okay, this frivolity has escalated, okay? It's gone from bad to worse. I'm looking at something here, send me all emails and texts between you and any employee of the Monterey Police Department for the periods of July 21st, 2021 to the present.
Yeah, and so it's the job of the records access officer to request to narrow the scope, and it says that in the.
No, I don't think I can request to narrow the scope. I can send him an estimate, and if he doesn't like it and thinks it's excessive, then I can say, you need to be clearer on things. But I have to first give an estimate.
Well,
You
no.
said that everybody cannot be charged.
No, I've read the public records handbook, and you can narrow the scope
Okay, so
without even.
let's say I do
offering an
that,
estimate.
and he says, nope.
I'm just saying, it just needs to be done consistently. It's not
Okay,
supposed to be a
let's move
political
forward,
decision.
Justin, though. I need to know how to answer this because I have like 3 more days.
Mhm.
So I either want permission to charge this individual or send him an estimate and see if he still wants the records request fulfilled. Or I want to send this to town council to respond to because there are multiple issues with both of these requests.
So why wasn't
If that
in
person had
September?
issues, they should have come and asked you to contact council as well. But they didn't.
No, I'm just hoping.
They've actually said that they deleted records and they've admitted that the records exist, but they don't want to give them. So if you want to get into all that, we can.
No,
okay?
I'm just getting into.
Let's just deal with this one.
The records access officer position being done consistently.
Okay.
That's all.
So speaking of consistency, this particular individual sent this list, Mr. Weingold. You were at a meeting, a public meeting, where I made a public records request to Mr. Weingold and yourself. You complied. Mr. Weingold did not. At all. I mean, not even a notice that I'm not complying, but did not comply at all. So where's the consistency in that?
The consistency is, this is about the records access officer position.
No, this is not.
You're trying to make it about the records access officer position.
It's not. This is about the abuse of the public records access laws in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Because these are clearly, when somebody's asking you questions that you couldn't answer them even if you wanted to answer them. I mean, even if you could answer them. But just basically to tie in a little knot, then that goes beyond the scope of what the public records request was, and that's why.
I mean, for instance, all documents and computer data metadata that refer to your involvement work on the following town projects. I would have to hire a professional to tell me what metadata is and how I would even get it for this person.
So doesn't the records access officer have the ability, as you said, to narrow the scope?
I am asking, because of the person that is making this request, Justin, who had every available time, puts me down, claims I've done something, falsely accuses me of something, I am not going to make that decision on my own. So you, as my supervisor, I am asking you, can I either send him an estimate or I'm sending this to council? That's what I'm
It
asking you
needs-
as my
It needs to
supervisor.
be done consistently.
Yeah, before you get to
That's not
that,
the
Justin, you're right in saying the records access officer should be consistent. No question about that. But that's not the issue that you have here. The issue you have here is whether you, as a select board, are gonna give one member of the select board permission to take your town administrator and have her spend probably a week or 2 weeks for free to him of answering them. The motion should be a motion that he not have these documents for free, and then the rest is to the access officer.
And you're talking about someone on our board, but someone who has remained anonymous requested 8 months of documents, text and email. I mean, it just needs to be done consistently, that's all.
So we're gonna start from today.
But not
Go
for
ahead.
free. That person wasn't
So
getting
was
it.
the anonymous person charged?
This is a question of him getting it for free. You're talking about taking one of your most important employees and saying, spend the next week or 2 looking for all these documents that one person
No,
wants.
because the scope can be narrowed, and we've been over that.
But I have to send him an estimate first.
But this never required an estimate.
She never said that it was going to take a long time. She's actually had complaints filed against her because she's not responding.
Excuse me, Melissa, did you ask Terry for the amount of time she had to spend to give you information?
We're not gonna be talking about anybody when they're not in the room here, so it's gonna.
It just, it
People
can't be
need
a
to speak when their hands are up.
It just can't be a politicized, it has to be done consistently.
It's not politically,
It's not-
Justin, it's a
not
question of whether he gets it for free. This other thing doesn't
So I will
involve
tell
somebody
you,
getting it for
look,
Were
free.
people charged for these 2 requests, for requests of 13 people, 2 months, no topics listed? 13 people communications for 2 months, but no topics listed, was that person charged for that request?
There were topics listed, but that's also a town official, so you said town officials don't have to pay.
So I would make a motion that from this day forward, that everybody, including have to pay for the public records requests.
I
Yes.
can't, because
Consistency.
when I
That's-
Would you
saw,
like me to charge those people?
no, when I,
Because I will gladly,
when
and
I
I'm sure the person will pay.
when I saw,
We can't go retroactively.
I'm not comfortable with that, policy, because when I saw the backup documentation of a summary report, which is part of the job as select board, is you get a report, how did a project go? I wanted the backup to dig deeper into how the project went, and I was gonna be charged money. That seems prohibitive of me doing my job as a selectman.
It does,
To view
however,
backup
you have
documentation.
active select board members who seem to be abusing the privilege.
And so why it cannot be abused, and why we initially agreed to it, is because, as John Silver pointed out at that meeting, and it's listed in the minutes, the RAO always has the ability to narrow the scope.
Okay.
That's just, it is what it is.
And the RAO is telling you that due to the person that is making this request, I do not feel comfortable making that decision on my own. So I am deferring to my
So we were gonna need,
supervisors. You are gonna need to vote.
we need
Is
to-
there a state office that deals with public?
Yeah, the public records division.
Justin,
So-
if the REO can't fulfill her position, put someone else in there to do the job if she feels compromised.
Please mute Nancy
Absolutely.
Tomas.
Our other records access officer is Chief Backus, so I'll give this to him, okay? How would you like that?
Well,
So in other words, I can, however, for mine, I can consult either Chief Bacchus or you
Yeah.
to narrow the scope of.
well, it's not your job, it's the RAO's job. The request is made, and then a response has to be prepared to the requester.
Please narrow the scope of this garbage.
Yep, so I'm
It's
gonna
not-
give
it's
it to
not
the
his
other
job.
records access officer, since my immediate supervisors are refusing to help in a situation that I've asked.
Well, I am not
It's
trying to
simple,
not help, I'm
Justin.
just trying to make sure that the position is done consistently.
Okay. And
And
Oh my
abuses.
Okay, with this particular situation, I am asking you,
Mhm.
can I charge this individual? This situation only, no other situations apply here. Can I charge this
No, I think
individual?
the
No,
much
it's
more
just this
appropriate-
situation.
The much more appropriate thing to do is to, when you get a frivolous request, like the ones that you got in September, that's just my opinion, but when you get a large request for something like 8 months of communications with 12 people on 10 topics, or 13 people, 2 months, no topics listed, or you get something like you're getting here, is to do what the RAO position allows you to do, which is to narrow the scope,
So I
not
guess,
to charge the
I guess
money.
if you were upset about it then, you should have come and said, as the RAO, I should have handled that differently.
I'm not upset, I
But you
just want
didn't,
to be
you are
done
upset, because
consistently.
you brought it up several times. That's done and in the past, Justin. This is the current situation, and I need guidance on how to handle it.
Do
The
your
same way-
job.
Will somebody, can she be booted out of meetings?
Please, please do that, please.
Disruptive, if you're disruptive in a meeting, then you can.
She is, I mean, you'd be kicked out if you were sitting in here.
Okay, so, I will seek the guidance of the records access officer. However, I am reserving my right to consult counsel as well, because, some of these, I believe that this is, that not only is this a, breaches of the public records access, laws, but I also believe that it is, that it may also constitute, maybe of a harassment.
Yes.
And so, and you know, everybody wants to write little letters about you're harassing me or anything, this is harassing.
But Steve, it's not, you don't even need to narrow the scope, you don't even
I don't even
receive.
need to narrow the scope.
No, hear me out.
Every single text that I had with Don Coburn.
So you don't receive the request. The RAO receives the request. They prepare a response about what can feasibly be provided. And then, then it would be your job to provide those documents, not before.
Steve, you didn't approve the new town council policy, so technically you can contact without permission. So can you do that for me, please? Thank you.
I'm going to be contacting
Thank you.
counsel.
And there's people with their hands up in the
Yes,
audience.
yes, keep it nice and keep
I
it brief.
believe
because we
Susan
wanna get
Cooper
to-
was first.
What?
Susan
I
Cooper.
have a couple of concerns, and to some degree, this is for you, Justin. First, I think that whether or not a previous request was fulfilled properly or should have been handled differently, assume it was improperly handled for a moment. Would that mean it was okay to continue to improperly handle something just because it had been improperly? And I'm not saying it was. I'm just saying the fact that something was done in the past does not necessarily mean you have to be consistent and continue to do things in that manner. I understand your desire for consistency, and I agree, but sometimes you have to make a change, even if it means there's a change. The second thing is, the officer is asking the select board to narrow the scope or to ask counsel to help them narrow the scope. The officer has reasons to be concerned about how the requester will respond to their being the one that narrows the scope. I think that the select board is the officer's supervisor. I don't think you can just pass this back and say nothing when the person's being very clear that they're asking for direction in how to narrow the scope, because they are very concerned about the consequences of doing it in a way that the requester may take issue with. You can't punt it.
There is a process set up for that, Susan. So, and because this seems to happen quite a bit, if someone feels that a records request was not fulfilled or the scope was narrowed, in an unreasonable way, they contact the state office, because there's been a number of times we had on the agenda, a complaint about a public records request, and it's really not the select board's business. It's the state office's business.
That's if you're appealing a decision.
Yeah.
I haven't even made a decision yet. I am trying to get to that point.
And so I trust you as records access officer to read the public records.
I have told you that I feel uncomfortable, and you as my supervisors need to guide me. So if you're gonna put me in a position like that, and set me up.
I'm not setting.
You are setting me up.
I'm not-
I'm asking you for help and you are denying to give it to me.
I don't,
Ellen Coburn also has her hands up and she's had her hand up.
Okay, we'll do Ellen first.
Ellen.
Thank you. Susan, said exactly what I wanted to say in both of her points, exactly. And I think that Susan and I, if I were to say it again, which I won't, but I think that we really do speak, Justin, for a great number of people in town, which you could see by the bylaw vote, which was 68-11. That was a vote which we all know was prompted by our concerns about the situation in town hall and about the way people are treating each other. And so don't think that at this meeting, just because Susan says it and I say it, that's it, that those are the only people who feel this way. We are looking to the select board to support peace and return to decency in our town. And one of the most decent things the select board could do right now would be to listen to an employee who is really basically pleading with the select board right now for help. That's the word she used. Please help me. Help me. I'm sure you understand, and I think we all understand why she feels threatened by trying to minimize, limit the list. Because John Weingold is the person who requested it. And John Weingold and Melissa are not exactly on the best of terms right now, to put it mildly. So I really think that when an employee as important as Melissa or as important as anyone in the town asks for help from the select board, I think the people are behind that employee. And I hope that you would hear that cry for help.
Makes sense.
Yes, Mickey, I'm sorry.
I actually agree with Melissa on this.
Thank you, Mickey.
And Ellen and Sue. I think that this is a little different situation where there is such animosity directed between them. Now, whether one person is right or one person is wrong, I have no idea. But there is animosity. This is going to be part of the investigation. And I think that right now Melissa needs some guidance on this. And since she can't go to the state office, I guess, unless it's an appeal.
Right.
Then she would have to go to the council, just to get guidance on how to handle it, and she can say, well, this is what council advised I do. It just makes sense to me that you don't leave anybody hanging out.
Right.
I don't care who it is. Well,
Since there's no policy on charging people, that would be the only alternative.
I have a solution, I think. The statute says that the records access officer can deny completely an application if it's frivolous or intended to harass or intimidate the municipality. I think without changing your policy, you could decide on motion that these particular things that John has submitted are in fact intended to harass and are frivolous. And that therefore, for that reason, you're not going to have him free service for a week or so from the administrator, from the records access officer. If you did that, it wouldn't change the policy. And then it would fall to the records access officer to reply. One of the ways she could reply, by the way, is simply sending a letter saying that it's frivolous or intended to harass. And if John didn't accept that, he could appeal to the state and the state could rule on it. But let's not let him get away with getting all this work for free in the beginning.
so if it's considered to be harassment, would you consider, and I'm not sure if you're aware of the request that I'm talking about from September directed at a different town employee, would you consider that to be harassment?
I don't know anything.
Do we let some employees get harassed and not others?
I don't know anything about it, but that's one where the person would have to pay.
No,
Well-
not to my knowledge. They didn't pay.
These were town
There
employees
was
that
no
requested
estimate.
this. But the person also didn't say that they were being harassed, so, and they didn't seek guidance on this.
Whatever that one was, I don't know about it, but you have before you this one, you know, looking at it, that it is frivolous.
Okay, so records access officer is a job that's laid out by the state, very clearly how to be done. It cannot
Yeah,
be-
but you've
it should not
with your
be
policy,
politically
you've
weaponized.
interfered with that,
I
Justin,
understand
by
it's
giving this free service. And
It
I
shouldn't
think
be politically weaponized where some requests are allowed and others aren't. I really do think that the scope should be narrowed on a lot of these requests. And I think that's up to the record. I really do agree that requests of, with
Yeah.
15 people and months of things should be limited. I really do.
Copies of all
believe that.
emails texted between you and between, to you and from you and Susan Cooper concerning select board business for 90-day agenda or any town business before the 2021 election and after her defeat in the 2021 election. Can somebody explain that to me? Susan, can you explain that to me?
Hello?
You're asking Melissa to judge herself. And anybody is a judge. How can she be asked to judge herself? Because whatever decision she makes is gonna be wrong
It's a no-win
to
scenario.
somebody.
So
It's a no-win
is the chief the
situation.
public records access officer?
He's also a public records access officer, yes.
Okay, and is that a statute that the public records access officer can remove in their opinion, frivolous?
Yeah, do you really want to take the chief of police's time?
And you wanna put a target on him
No,
now?
With
I don't
this
wanna take
for
the chief
free?
of time.
For
However,
free, without charge? He's gonna take a week or two to answer all this?
well, I don't think.
I think, like I said, the
Might
scope.
I have a word?
This is the
Got
reason
lots
why
of hands up here.
this is the reason why we put the policy in place, is because the RAO very clearly has the ability to limit the scope.
It's a bad policy. We used to charge everybody and then we get
The-
more
the-
requests.
we would-
Yes, but in this particular situation.
Right.
I am a target of this individual and I do not feel comfortable. So I am asking my supervisors to help me on this.
Can't you put yourself in Melissa's shoes? I mean, put yourself in
I
her
try
shoes.
to be consistent, yeah, and I would say
Coming back.
you should be able to contact town council with what you can reasonably do within your role as RAO to respond to the request. And I think you should share with them the requests that you.
But that one does not have a complaint about it, Justin, so you need to take that one
No,
off
I'm
the
just
table.
saying, this is RAO business that's been done, and I think to give context on how the town operates, you should share these two requests from September 13th
They're
and
not
September,
relevant.
But
and
they're
September
not the
14th.
same.
They're not
They're
relevant.
not the same.
It's context about how RAO
They're not
operates.
relevant.
You can still.
So let's go back to the hours thing. So you approve changing hours for multiple people, but not for me. You don't treat me the same. So is that consistent, is that consistency,
We changed your
Justin?
hours.
But you
and
didn't do it to what I have, and you currently have a
I'm not-
town employee that is not working the hours she's supposed to be working and doesn't have permission to not be coming into town hall, but you aren't writing her up, but yet you write me up when I don't write the minutes how you want. I want consistency, so if you want consistency, then you need to deal with all issues that are going on here.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion, to, I'm gonna make a motion to allow the records access officer to contact town council about how to appropriately respond to the received public records request and share the two public records requests from September 13th and September 14th that were large public records requests.
They're not relevant, and that's not what I was asking for.
Yeah, you're.
With town council, that's all.
But there's nothing that
I'm
town council
providing
can
the-
do about those, Justin. We're talking about the ones that exist right now in time. We have two of them that we have two of them here, these two. Okay, we need to start, at some point, you have to start from a point and say, we start from here forward, we're gonna make it better, okay? And so we're just trying to make from here forward, believe me, you can go back in time, I can find.
I'm just trying to make sure things are done consistently and
Okay.
not politically
It's not political. I
That's
understand. I understand.
irrelevant to what's now.
We're just gonna
They're
start
two
right now.
different things.
And she has 3 days.
It's not being, I just want to make sure the job, and I'm saying, Melissa, as records access officer, can consult counsel on how to respond to this request. I think for context, he should have these other 2 requests.
May I say something?
Consistency,
Hello
make a
had his
motion,
hand up for ages.
Yeah.
that all of them, the 2 that you have and these others, make a motion that they're all frivolous and that the people asking for all of them cannot have them for free. Because you think those are frivolous, you know the others are frivolous. So
But
deny
it's not
free
the role of the
access.
select.
There are many people with their hands up. Why are you saying people get to talk multiple times on an issue, and the other people with their hands up don't get to talk, ask a question, or give a suggestion at all?
Thank you,
It's a
Jeff.
point of order.
We will, but let's talk to some of the people that are.
I would like to speak.
All right.
Who is it?
This is
Yeah, you have to mention your name.
Melissa.
Jeff and Lauren is Jeff Zimmerman.
So I was first.
Go ahead. I don't know who should speak. I think the chair
My
should
name is
recognize
Khalil
everybody,
Massaman,
not just the
and I
people in
want
the
to
room.
talk.
Hey,
Hello first.
hello.
Let's talk about consistency. Whatever the gripe was, Justin, about what happened in September, first of all, happened. But if Melissa had the power as an RAO, as you talk about, to accept or not accept, she accepted. Now she's in a situation where she deems that these are frivolous and she doesn't want to accept, except that there will be retribution. Let me remind you, Justin, that you ran on civility and you're far from it right now. Susan spoke very, very eloquently, very clearly, and Ellen would have spoken the same way had Susan not spoken. I back what they say. This conversation has really devolved to the lowest point that I've seen so far. Let Melissa have her protection by letting the council decide about this issue and nothing else. Be civil, be decent, be clear.
Jeff and Lauren, you had your hand up next.
Thank you.
Oh, Jeff and Lauren. Okay, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Jeff Zimmerman, I think we are going beyond our scope in some ways. Oh, let me turn my camera. I thought my camera was on. I'm sorry. For some reason, it's not going on. I see it, but it's not going on. Anyway, we're going beyond our scope. If we say that the records officer who's afraid of retribution, as I hear her speaking, is looking for guidance on how to handle the complaint, then, and we say it's okay for her to talk to town council to get that guidance, then it's not up to us to tell town council how to do their job. And if town council feels they need to know how prior complaints were dealt with, great. If town council feels that they don't need to know how prior complaints were dealt with, fine. But I think that we have an obligation, unless there is a state agency that I'm not aware of, and there very well may be, as a newcomer to the state, that is the supporting arm for all the records officers in the state, and that agency guides the record officers on situations that are complex and where the record officer is afraid of retribution or feels they even have to recuse themselves on a certain situation if they feel they're personally involved. I'm not saying Melissa is or Melissa isn't. That's not for me to judge. But I think if we say, then that's fine, she should go there. But if there isn't that organization and and the select board doesn't feel that they're able to rule on it per se, then I think it should go to council and let council decide how council wants to do the job and what information council perceives as relevant. And I don't think it's up to the individual citizens of the town to determine that. And I don't even think that if the select board can't do it, that it's up to the select board to determine how the town council does his or her job. That's up to the town council. Thank you.
Steve Moore?
My comment isn't about how to resolve this. It's just an overview comment that the current requests, as I've read them, are politically very chilling and feel to me to be extremely undemocratic and somehow trying to point the finger at people who are politically organizing because they have a shared common interest in a subject. This broad net to try and find out who said what about something that an individual disagrees with is anti-democratic. This is no help at all in supporting Melissa, but I just think that's kind of the elephant in the room right now, that there's this broad request that potentially can make people fearful. And if I was considering running for the select board, and you can bet as much money as you want, I am not, but I would not want to be in a position where absolutely every conversation I've had is subject to a public records request. It's just, Hillary Clinton went through this. It turns out that a lot of the information requested was about her organizing birthday parties for her daughter. It's just, if there isn't very defined topic, it should not be recognized as legitimate. Thank you.
Hello?
Could I,
There's still more people.
could I speak on select board?
Good.
I think it is chilling and it is anti-democratic, and this is Steve's first foray, or it sounds like, into being requested. But just so everyone knows, I've named 8 months of communications with me on 10 topics in September. I named 2 months of communication, no topic listed, with a town employee. This isn't the first foray into records requests that are what Steve Moore speaks about. And I've been involved in them before. So I just want people to know that while they're digesting everything that's going on. Yeah, I don't like them. But when they're about me,
Yeah.
did I get protected?
So I've been on the select board for 5.5 years. And in the 5.5 years that I've been on the select board, I've never had anything even remotely like this.
So I just beat you to it by 2 months, is all that happened.
So yes.
And I wasn't protected, and maybe that's not a reason to not protect other people. But I think while people are thinking about all this, they should know that what Steve Moore speaks about, it is concerning. And it happened to me 2 months ago. And it happened to a number of people. And no stink was raised over that.
So, okay, so wait, so now. What was that?
It's people keep unmuting themselves.
Okay.
Hillel has his hand up. Janet Jensen has her hand up.
Okay, I'll be real quick.
Can I make a motion? And I know I have a lot of. We've been talking about this for a long time, so can I make a motion and then we'll see if we're gonna continue to talk about it or not?
well, so Melissa, how many people have a hand up? Let me just, because I can't see.
2 right now.
Okay, 2 people
2
here.
and 1 in the audience here.
What?
And Don.
Okay, so you got 2 people online and Don. So we're gonna take those 3 questions, and then we're gonna close this conversation session. All right?
Hello?
It's very interesting that John Weingold is not here for this discussion. The very person who's asked for all this information, this 40 hours worth of information, no justification for why this information is needed, no response to it, is it frivolous or not. He's offline, started the trouble, walked away. Very interesting. I'm done.
Janet?
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that it seems like at least one person, probably more, in this town are just bent on obstructionism, and we're playing into it by spending all this time discussing how to dispense with a, obviously frivolous request. And I think the select board should get better at just dispensing with this stuff and, not wasting everybody's time. Anyway.
It's hard to do it when you talk about, government agencies that are set up to basically promote transparency to the public. I mean, all of these things, these public records requests were set up with a very good idea that the public should have access to it. But unfortunately, some people have taken this very good idea, just like the open meeting law complaint thing, and have corrupted it or weaponized it. And so unfortunately, we sort of have to deal with it. Believe me, I'd be the first person to say, tell them to go take a hike, but we can't. We have to address it. So I apologize on my behalf of all the time that we are wasting, because there would be a lot of things that I'd like to talk about. Mr. Coker.
I'm sympathetic to what you said, Justin. And I agree with you that what you have before you there is utterly frivolous as what's been submitted by John. And there is a way to deal with it consistently, and that is to prove that neither
Raise your hand.
set of documents be given to the person for free. And then they will be treated consistently by the RA.
I think I'm gonna take Don's suggestion and just amend it a little bit. Why don't we make a motion to have the records access officer be able to request advice on these two public records requests and these two public records requests from September 13th and September 14th, and request advice on how to deal with all four of them in terms of narrowing the scope.
But this one, the person hasn't complained that they can't fulfill it. Why would
But
I
it's
do
the
that?
records access officer's job, not the respondent's job to narrow the scope.
All this
But-
conversation that we've had this evening.
Justin,
I'm trying to do something that's fair
But
and
Justin, it's not
consistent
because-
to all these.
no, the person that has to provide those records has not said that they can't provide them or that it's a burden to them.
Right.
So there's no complaint on this one. There is a complaint on this one because, as everyone has said here, I'm in fear of retribution.
No.
I think what Steve Moore said is very correct, and that the records requests have been weaponized against people politically. And in all cases, I want council to look at these and say, how should the RAO respond? Not the person who the request is made about.
You're
but how-
weaponizing them more.
But Justin, I have to.
And so what-
He doesn't
what-
get it, he doesn't get
I-
it. These
yes.
are ridiculous.
I make a motion that we contact council based on these requests, that these two requests. And that we mention to council that there are that there are some requests in September, and ask council if they want to rule on them as well. But we need guidance on two pertinent requests as they expire in 3
But
days.
what are they ruling on? This request is asking, how do we respond to this? This one has already been partially responded to, so there's nothing to ask them.
What we want you to ask them is, should the scope be narrowed? How would this,
That's what
how
you
would?
want to ask. The RAO doesn't want to ask that.
Just say John Levin.
Justin?
I'm getting mad at myself because I'm not explaining myself carefully.
Just, may I be recognized?
Who's that?
John
You-
Levin.
John Levin.
The council can have an opinion other than on whether you grant access to documents for free. It's your policy. Surely your policy includes that the document requests cannot be absurd, frivolous, and so on, as you feel both these are. So all you have to do is move that both of these are frivolous and therefore
Right.
cannot be had for free,
It's like,
and then leave it to the RAO.
we have lawyers for a reason, and I would like the lawyers to take a look. And if we present them with all 4 of these requests, and they can advise the records access officer on how to deal with them.
But I don't need help dealing with the first
She doesn't
2. I
need to
need
do
help
that too.
with those 2.
Okay.
Just start talking.
This
You got John Levin who's got his hand up as well.
Okay, wait a second, John. This is Mickey again. I agree with Justin. I think he should be able to look at those and say, we get this kind of thing, but this time I'm fearful of this person, whatever. But he should see that this kind of stuff is coming through, and how should it be handled? If that would be the primary source that you're looking for is guidance on the 2 that you just got. The other 2 are backup to show what has been happening, how things have been going. And I think it's just as important that he does get all of the information. And that's all of the information I gather that would show, well, we did answer this because there was no complaint about it or whatever else, and there was no problem with it, but there is a problem, and how should I deal with it, and should I have dealt with this differently?
So why don't we do this? Send 2 emails. You send this to town council, ask the questions you want to send to town council. When you send this to town council, we'll ask the questions to town council.
I don't have questions I wanna ask, I think.
It sounds like you have questions about this, so.
Well, what
I like Mickey's. I like Mickey saying.
What did John say?
Yeah, go ahead, sorry, John.
All right, John, let me get down, and then that's it. We get Trump points.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I can have a few moments. So, I think what's going on here, and what's I think troubling to me is that because of the significant dysfunction that we have within the political establishment of the community, that these kinds of issues, which would normally be handled routinely and without controversy, create controversy. I'm going to volunteer to have the select board appoint me as a records officer, whatever it's called. As an independent person, I'm not in city hall, in town hall. I don't have to deal with the parties, and I'll be more than happy to act on all of the pending records requests. So if the select board wants to accept that offer, I will accept that role and that position, and we can end this conversation.
John Levin, RAL.
I second that. I say yes.
Yes.
Yes. You just
Okay.
don't know what you just volunteered for, my friend, but you got it.
No, I know exactly what I volunteered for.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
John.
Please have, Melissa, please forward to me all of the pending record requests, please.
Please understand that there's apparently we've got 3 days to this, or we can actually,
Yes.
we can request an extension.
I believe the statute allows me to request an extension. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, we're allowed 15 days on
Okay.
top of that.
Great. So that's terrific. You win the Nobel Monterey Prize.
Peace Prize.
So-
Right,
While we're talking about public records, can you finish the last one?
Yeah, we have to.
So Ms. Tomasovich is requesting draft minutes from the Board of Selectmen executive session dated October 4th. And according to the open meeting law, public bodies are not required to disclose the minutes, notes, or other materials used in an executive session if the disclosure of these records may defeat the lawful purposes of the executive session. Once disclosure would no longer defeat the purposes of the executive session, however, minutes and other records from that executive session must be disclosed unless they fall into one of the exemptions. So again, this is another difficult situation with someone that's
It's not
targeting me.
difficult at all, Melissa.
And I want to make
because
sure that you agree that you are not releasing those minutes, and therefore I cannot provide them to Nancy Tomasovich.
the release of any of those minutes would defeat the purpose.
Isn't that up to the new records access officer?
Yeah, would you please
So
forward?
now we have three access. Forward that one to you?
Yes, forward the request to me, please.
The request was made under NGL C-30A, section 21, item number 1. And that's also part and parcel of an ongoing investigation.
Can we make one appointment before?
Yes.
Trevor Hirsch to the Lake Garfield Working Group.
I move that we appoint Trevor Hurst to the Lake Garfield Working Group. Do I have a second?
Second,
I vote yes.
yes.
I vote,
You wanna do the 2 charter studies?
Yes,
Though I have one question about the charter
yes.
committee, because it went on the warrant as 5 members.
How many members?
That was the bylaw committee,
It was on the warrant as 5 members.
but when it was amended, I think they took that out of there.
Was it?
I believe so, I will go with the minutes.
Let's look that up, make sure.
You have 2 people interested.
Yes. and then-
So are we limiting the size of any of these committees? Because I think that's something, and I have that on as bylaw review committee update. I know we've already received more
So
candidates
let's,
than
why don't
open
we,
seats.
all right, so let's talk about the town charter committee first, and then we can move on.
Well, I think they all wrap into the same,
But they are independent, they're,
Well, the bylaw one may be easier to solve because you have to be a registered voter, and I believe some of the people that applied are not registered voters, because they're gonna have to run for the position.
and I guess my point being, are we going to appoint endlessly, if we want to have 12 people on the town charter committee, 13 people on, or I think 5 is a good number. We have other committees that we're looking for people now for, and so I don't think we should make each one.
so we're not making anything. If people want to apply for a position on a committee, there is a voting amount, but if people still would like to be on the committee, they can be. It's not up to us to say, we're capping you unless by but.
So the town charter did not cap it in anybody, it just says
It wasn't
made up of
capped.
citizens.
So, okay, so let's just do the town charter, so it does not have a cap,
No,
all right?
okay.
Right now, there are how many people on it right now? 3, 4,
There were 4
I'm
last week.
gonna motion to adjourn because it's 9:15, and we'll deal with this because I want.
No, we're gonna, no, let's finish these appointments, I don't understand what the problem
Motion
is.
to adjourn. It's been 3 hours and 15 minutes.
I'd like to.
And I
make a
think
motion.
none of the rest of this business is urgent.
Well, we have Mr. Coburn as one of the people that wanna be on the town charter committee.
I'm
I
in
would
no
think-
rush.
What,
I'm in
I
no
want, in
rush.
respect to you, Mr. Coburn, since you spent such a time here and you seem to be on the agenda, I don't wanna get in trouble for not dealing with things on the agenda. I mean, it's,
Don't do it on my account.
well, no, I'm sitting here anyway. I have no, do you have a problem appointing Rebecca Wallen and Donald Coburn on the town charter?
The thing is, it sounds, the minutes say there is no limit.
You're not answering my question. Do you have a problem about, because right now we have 2 people that wanna be on the
I'm making a
committee.
motion to adjourn the meeting because it's been going on for 3 hours and 15 minutes, and we have a item to deal with.
So let's
It may
appoint,
seem simple.
let's appoint the people that came here, Rebecca Wallen and Donald Coburn, to be on the town charter committee, and then we can adjourn the meeting if you like.
No, because I think we have a thing to deal with, which is how big are we going to grow committees? Is there going to be a limit or no?
So that would be a good agenda item to have.
And so I
have
wanna
at the next
discuss
meeting.
that more broadly. Do we want even number of people or an odd number of people on the
But
committee?
you can't, the thing is this, if that discussion has to happen prior to having these folks wanna be on the committee. So we haven't had that discussion, however, there's been no limitation set forth, and so we have 2 people that seem to be very community oriented, that wanna be on the committee. I don't understand what the pushback is.
Because we have this coming up with the bylaw review. We may have it with
This is
Peter
a town charter
Marquette's
committee,
group.
this has nothing to do with the bylaw review committee.
I just don't
really
wanna have-
understand it. Is there something, do you have a problem with either one of these applicants? 'Cause
No, I'm trying to figure out how we're going to consistently do this going forward. Because we
So
have a
then
number
we
of
had,
committees.
we should put that on the agenda.
I'm gonna motion to adjourn this meeting because I think that is a larger discussion than I'm capable of at the moment.
You have somebody here who is asking to be on the committee.
I could leave and then you could.
I know, but I don't understand. You have somebody who's actually here who sat through all of this that wants to be on this committee, and I think they have a right to be voted in. It has nothing to do
You
with.
could also
anything.
cap it at 7, and then
What?
you could do those 2 people tonight, cause there's 4.
I
You
know,
get 6,
but
and then
I
you get
just-
1 more person.
But look, right, this is a discussion we need to have, and I just don't think right now is the time to have it, and I'm going to motion, we made it for.
I don't know, this,
On a motion to adjourn.
Can somebody in the audience explain this to me? Because I'm in the twilight zone here.
I don't want to tire Justin out.
No, but I
It
just really want to understand.
is kind of late, and I think we all get sluggish at a certain hour.
I mean, I don't want to get Rebecca angry at me. Is she still on?
Ellen has her hand up. Go ahead, Ellen.
Oh, I don't understand how big is the committee now? Is there a problem with the size of the charter committee? Is that the problem?
4 people on the committee.
Well, didn't Justin say how big is the committee going to get? Was Justin talking about the fact that the committee is too big?
No, what I was talking is that it went on the warrant as 5 people, and I didn't know if 5 people is a good number to stick to, or maybe we want to do 7, or maybe we want to do 9, or 6 to have an even number, or maybe we don't want to cap it at all. But I think it's a discussion that needs to be had moving forward, because we can say it's only about the town charter committee, but I want to set policies and do things consistently. And so what we do for the town charter, let's do for the, the Peter Marquette's energy group, and let's do going forward, so we don't have questions about fairness. So
I'm leaving, so you
on that
do
note,
whatever you
I'm
want.
gonna motion to adjourn the meeting.
So the thing is that, there's not a set amount for every committee. Every committee can be different numbers. You can't be consistent. You can't say every committee must be 5 members. You just can't be.
No, it's not that kind of consistency I'm looking for, but a policy about what do we do when there's more applicants than spots? Bylaw review.
But that policy that you're talking about has nothing to do with the fact that 2 people want to be on this committee. There's got to be something else at play over here, because I've never seen anybody push back so hard against putting 2 people on a committee before. I mean, that has to be. Otherwise, it has nothing to do with the amount of people on the committee. If you have 2 people that wanted to be on it, there's room on it, you're allowed to have those amount of people on it, so we should appoint them.
Can I just finish what I was asking? If 2 more people are added tonight, does that mean that this committee is closed and no one else can join it? Or is it so crowded because of the 2 more people?
These are all good questions, Ellen, and I think they're worth a discussion. And I'm not.
I just wanted an answer to the size. I just wanted to know how big the committee would be.
Well, we need to have that discussion.
No, it's not a discussion, it's a question. Will the committee have 4 people if these 2 are added?
There's 4 already on it. There would be 6 if these 2 are added. There's currently no limit.
Okay, thank you.
It's got to be about the specific people, because it cannot be about, since there is no policy in place right now and 2 people want to be on it. There's never been a time in Monterey history where 2 people said, I want to be on it, there's room on it, and you say, no, I don't want to make that decision right now. It has never happened before.
Do you feel objectionable towards the 2?
I feel that we need to have a discussion in general, which is why you'll notice my initials not on your copy, but on my copy for bylaw review committee update. We're not done with dealing with those.
It's a different committee.
This is a different committee.
So we're not done receiving applications till next Wednesday, but I put that on there because I wanted to bring up to the board, how are we gonna deal with this type of
But you also
policy.
put appointment to the town charter committee, Rebecca Wolin, on there. So you were prepared to appoint Rebecca Wolin until Don Coburn got at it.
Because I went to the town meeting warrant and saw that it said 5 people.
But you didn't go to the town meeting warrant minutes that don't say 5 people.
I did not. So that's new information. And I just am going to motion to adjourn and discuss this.
I gotta put it out there, it does not sound, something does not sound correct. I've never experienced this. I mean, I have never experienced this before. You have 2 people that want to be on a committee, and whether you like them or you don't like them, or you agree with them or you don't agree with them, believe me, if they want to be on the committee, they want to be on the committee. Yeah, should be happy. I would never, I put the whole idea down as if somebody wants to be on the committee and there's a lot, we can allow it. We should just allow it.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yes. Who's this?
Is my husband still at the meeting?
No, he left.
No, he started to cry right, because he didn't get appointed, and so he ran out of the room. It was very
I'm
sad.
I'm in another place, so I don't know. But he told me, be sure to come to the meeting tonight and be sure to stay so you can see whether I become a member of the charter committee. So I am still on. I'm still waiting. That's all I have to say.
He's a judge, he's a lawyer, why would you not want him on? He would be wonderful,
Talk to me.
it would be wonderful.
Are there lawyers?
There's obviously something here, and I can't, when you figure it out, you let me know, all right?
Point of order, please. I believe a motion to adjourn. I believe a motion to adjourn has precedence over discussion of anything else that's on the table. And
You're absolutely
and
correct.
a motion to adjourn has been made multiple times, and somehow it's not being addressed. We're continuing to discuss the issue.
Actually, right now, we're signing letters, but you're right, it was not seconded.
Well, I recall a meeting before where there were multiple motions, and you were just going to continue, Steve, you were just going to continue making motions until the meeting was over every 5 or 10 minutes, I believe you said. But this is a motion to adjourn, and there's
I
only
think it was
two
every
people present who can even second the motion, which is interesting. And part of the problem of the three-person board, where you only, if one person leaves, you're left with two.
Right. That is a problem.
It's a huge problem, and we see it playing out here in our board, in our little community. We see it playing out this year of what happens when we have a problem on the board and there's only two people left, and now one person continues to make a motion saying he's exhausted and needs to and cannot deliberate in a reasonable way, and we are still continuing to ignore that motion
I'm
and do
80
business.
years old and I'm still awake.
Your point is duly noted.
I don't believe that's relevant, but nevertheless.
Just a joke.
Okay, thank you.
What's the final decision?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
There we go.
I vote yes.
yes.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.